Hey folks, this is Ryan with From Corners Unknown. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another artist interview episode, and in this one I have the utmost pleasure of speaking with Bruce of God Body Disconnect. Bruce has quite a storied history when it comes to his musical endeavors. In his late teens, he was the drummer for the New Jersey psychedelic death metal band named Dripping, though after this project's dissolution back in the early aughts, Bruce moved on to other sonic pastures, and through that he explored genres such as post-rock, dark jazz, and black metal, though none of these really materialized as Dripping did with full label support and professionally polished and recorded albums. However, this did change for Bruce when he emerged from obscurity as God Body Disconnect well over a decade after Dripping's disbanding. He made his debut on the well-established cinematic dark ambient label Cryo Chamber with his LP Dredge Portals, and a particularly striking quality about his debut, as well as his subsequent growing catalog of solo releases, is his use of spoken word to weave a tale about this lone individual who is shot and subsequently falls into a comatose state as they sink deeper and deeper into their inner self. Each solo album of his, the latest being The Mist Between Mirrors, articulates a new journey taken through a layer of this individual's inner self. And with each passing album, they dig further into this opaque abyss. Though I do want to delve deeper into this conceptual framework in this introduction, I think it is much too abstract for me to encapsulate succinctly, so I will leave it for you to discover in this conversation. Just after this little rambling of mine concludes, I will play for you folks the entire breadth of the first track off of The Mist Between Mirrors, titled Grief of the Living. And if you haven't listened to God Body Disconnect's work before, this composition will give you a pretty good flavor for Bruce's use of spoken word, as well as his masterful blending of field recordings, as well as his evocative soundscapes. And when the conversation reaches its natural conclusion, I will leave you with another track off of the same album, titled Old Feelings Always Return. With that, I sincerely hope all of you enjoyed this episode, as it was quite a thrill for me to undertake. There is quite the myriad of new insights from Bruce that I really don't think you'll find anywhere else on the web, and additionally, this is his first podcast-style interview. We talk a lot about Dripping, the inner self, God Body Disconnect. There's a lot of really amazing insights in this, and I sincerely hope you all enjoy listening to our exchange in this episode. So thank you all so much for your continued support, and thank you for any and all support you can give Bruce and God Body Disconnect.
Sometimes you reach a point where you just can't see ahead of yourself anymore. I've been here so many times before. But I keep thinking that I might be able to get out of here. If I could just hold on a little bit longer, you know? And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't even see anything I recognize anymore. I can't help but wonder, what would really happen if I just let go? Will I be remembered?
trying to think of a natural place to start. I actually haven't done an interview for a few months now. It's been so
Oh
dang
yeah.
busy over here.
Last one I heard was with Duncan from Flowers.
Yes. Yeah, I did that one and I ended up not I didn't really announce it, but I started taking a bit of a hiatus from doing some of the interviews to the extent that in a sense some of the processing of the conversations, as you could likely imagine. If you do a 2.5 hour conversation, it can get pretty difficult, or it just takes a good while to clean it up and make it sound good. And sometimes, there are just so many podcast episodes. I have a backlog of, I think, 5 or 6 things I need to get churned out, and it takes me so many days to get each thing pieced together, which is annoying, but that's just how it goes. But I'm glad to hear that you were intrigued enough to speak with me post the conversation with Duncan. I was pleased to hear that.
Oh yeah, no, I did. I loved listening to that interview. You know what I mean? Because obviously we're label mates, him and I, but I'm a fan.
Yes.
So that's above all. I'm the fan, so I like to hear everything. Especially on his new album. You know what I mean? I want to hear everything. All the little details of it, and what he was thinking behind it. It was a good interview, and it kind of intrigued me after that. I was like, this is a cool format, because
Yeah.
I only ever done write back interviews. You got the question sent to you, and then you type it back, and you can play with that for a while, and it's like, there's nothing like doing it, the way this is.
Yeah, and that's why I tend to favor these. I have done the more written style in the past, but I generally find, they definitely have their place and they serve their purpose well, but I've always found it to be, at least from my perspective, when I write questions, I would always find them, I would mull over the questions for so many days, and I'd be like, man, is this really what I want to be asking? And sometimes you think you come up with a really good question, and then the artist will reply with 3 words, and you're like, oh, well, that, I spent, 4 hours chiseling this thing out or thinking about it, and it's like, there's really nothing there, and it's just a little disheartening sometimes.
No, I know what you're saying. Listen, I'm the same way. It's like I'll get a question, and maybe it would take 2 sentences or something like that, and I'll be writing 3 paragraphs. I'm like, all right, listen, you can't fucking write 3 paragraphs here,
right?
Fill it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Take up the whole day, pages here. So
exactly. So I've certainly strayed the path from that style, and sometimes I won't name names, but I've had several instances of artists who are super keen on doing interviews, written ones, and I'll send them the questions and they just never write back, and I'm like, what the fuck did I just spend all that time writing those questions for? Really? And it's happened 3 or 4 times in the last few months, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this shit. I don't want to do this anymore. It just frustrated me,
I got you. I feel you.
You're
taking the time to do an right back,
Yeah, exactly. You spend several
Just be
days.
cordial, at least, what I'm saying? Right back,
Exactly.
You want to do the interview,
And even if they want to write back and say, hey, your questions suck, it's like, that's totally fine. I don't mind you.
Just write back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just write me back.
I have no qualms with people having criticism of me, or even constructive, or if they want to berate me, it's totally fine. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. It's just, I don't know, just the, radio silence is a little more, it's not unsettling, but it definitely just makes you feel a bit shittier than somebody who actually denigrates you, or they say something bad about your stuff. You're like, oh, okay, these people just are cold, just cold shouldering me, and it's a little unfortunate, but we don't have to dwell on all those previous instances that I've gotten burned on those things. But I'm glad that we're here doing this. It's just so fascinating to me to hear your voice, because I've only heard your voice through your albums, and then hearing you talk just in a more conversational setting, it's like, okay, this is, I don't know, it's just contextualizing so much else for me. It's just fascinating to hear.
No, I got you. A lot of people don't think it's me.
Really?
In the beginning when we first, when I dropped Dredge Portals, there was a lot of comments on YouTube and just people writing in just saying where did you get the sample from? Who's talking? This and that. And then Simon had to no, it's the artist himself. No, it's not. No, I heard it here. And it's like, So
is there any justification they gave as to how they would know, because it's like, how would they, because the way you structure your phrases and your sentences and your monologues, if that's a fair descriptor of them, I couldn't imagine you would be able to find something that particular around the web of somebody saying that. You know what I mean? Like, it seems very personal what you say in those monologues. So I don't know how you could think, oh, unless you hired somebody to do it for you, I guess. But I just can't imagine.
Yeah, I guess there might be a familiar accent, when you're
Sure.
from up, Jersey, New York, you know what I mean? There's plenty of guys that sound like me, you know what I mean? So,
Sure.
and if you're not from this area, you know what I mean? We all sound the same. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, that guy's from New York. All right. It's like,
Right.
but there's, you could be from Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, North Jersey. Everybody has a different, little bit of different accent here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean that could be just probably what it is.
Yeah, and I can't parse all the different. I assume, is there any like specific dialect that changes between the different regions? I haven't entrenched myself enough in like the East Coast areas, or within the areas you just rattled off or you listed. I don't really understand the nuances between all the different voices, if there are turns of phrase that are more typical in certain regions than others, etc. Those sorts of things.
I mean, not dialect wise. You know what I mean? Like, we all use the same kind of sayings and things like. I mean, listen, we're all Americans here, so we
Sure.
all, you know what I mean?
Sure.
We also, it's English is English. Is just probably the way sometimes Brooklyn people sound a little different. You know what I mean? Manhattan people sound a little different. But we all speak the same. You know what I mean? But there's a little bit of a difference.
Okay. No, it's one of those things where I've lived on the West Coast my entire life, and I just have only been over to the East Coast once, and I'm now 27, and I'm almost embarrassed. Not really embarrassed, but it's just unfortunate that I haven't been able to steep myself in more cultures or more areas across the United States. I just don't have the best well-rounded perception of how different regions operate or how different people speak. I just find that inherently fascinating.
Well, neither do I. You know what I mean? I haven't
Right.
been out of Jersey that much. I've been to California, Florida. That's up and down the East Coast.
Right.
Like I said, Boston and other places. But up by you, in Oregon, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't gone up there. I haven't been to the Midwest much, at all. I don't really think
Sure.
so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I was trying to think of a kind of a natural spot to dig into some of your music, and I don't know how particular you'll be on speaking about your death metal band or your former death metal band.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, because
listen, it's part of me. You know what I mean? It's
True.
like, and people know, that. I mean, there are a lot of fans that I have that follow me from Dripping. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Not too many, you know what I'm saying? But I've seen out there's people like, oh, he's from Dripping, and it's like, Dripping, shit. It's like, my God, because I really don't. Other than, I guess in the biography that I wrote when I first, started God by Disconnect, like that's probably the only place where I kind of announced that. You know what I mean? I really don't mix them together, but it's not because I don't want to. It's just, I don't see it, as a thing, I'm not going to start posting death metal songs on the God by Disconnect page. You know what I'm saying?
I would be totally down with that. I would love to see you saying, oh yeah, I just ripped the kit on this fucking track. Listen to this, guys. And they're like, what is going on? I love that kind of stuff. Just throwing people for a loop and making them scratch their heads. I always get a kick out of that kind of shit. But yeah, I don't know what the hell, how that detail escaped me, because Connor, as he brought that up in the review we did of The Mist Between Mirrors, and I was like, how the fuck did I not stumble upon that piece of information? I obviously did a shit job with some of my background research. I think I was focusing a bit too much on God Body Disconnect, not so much Dripping. But the one bit I mean, what I really am curious about is not even necessarily like just I guess the music is fascinating to me because I'm really big on death metal, but one component I'm fascinated about is how you went from playing drums in that band, and then so many years later you founded the God Body Disconnect project and such. And like just the evolution is fascinating to hear you go from this brutal death metal and now you're doing these very somber cinematic quality dark ambient compositions. It's just worlds apart in my mind, and I have such a hard time wrapping my skull around that transition, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, I figure a lot of people would think that, you know what I mean? But they're a little more close together than is on the surface, you know? By the way, I sent you out the record, so you'll get that probably next week or whatever.
I appreciate you doing that
the
too.
Dripping record.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem. I enjoy. I always love that when people enjoy the music. That's what it's all about for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not in here for the money or anything like that. I'm always into if you love it, and it's like, go ahead, man.
Yeah,
I got plenty of them. Take it. You know what I'm saying? I want you to enjoy it.
I think it's funny as hell too that you said you made some comment about it to the effect of if people knew how many copies I had of that, they would raid my house or something.
Oh yeah, well that's what Dripping fans. Yeah. Somebody the first pressing of the Dripping album, right? The very first one in 2002 on Macabre Mentos Records in Japan, right? That album's out of print now. That shit I seen it on eBay for like $400 one time.
Are you shitting
Get
me?
the fuck out of here, dude! Dripping shirts going for like insane amounts of money, dude. It's
my God. What do you think about? Yeah, what do you think about that? I'm curious because I saw that.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's absolutely crazy. You know why it's crazy? Because obviously I'm humbled by it. You know what I mean? I'm totally humbled. But it's like because when we first came out, we were 99, 2000, and we dropped the album in like 2001, 2002ish. Like we were doing some wild shit. We got hip hop samples.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I was doing fucking spoken word. Kind of like. Over it, and like we had fucking like 36 like million riffs in each song. You know what I mean? It was like just like a fucking mind fuck. It was psychedelic as shit. And in the beginning, people were like, oh, "You're putting fucking hip hop samples and fucking death metal. What the fuck is this shit?" It was like we got a lot of fucking hate. In the beginning, we'd fucking go play clubs and. We'd always have a whole bunch of fucking peeps with us from the crew. We got a lot of fucking guys come with us all the time, and we'd get fucking banned from clubs. We wouldn't be able to play anymore because we'd always have, people there that were like, oh, what the fuck, Dripping's playing, you guys putting rap shit and this and that, and like, our guys would go, what the fuck, and they'd step up and we'd fucking fights, and we'd be banned from a lot of fucking clubs. We couldn't play.
Really?
Because of that.
Huh.
And now it's like, damn. I finally see the love, after like 15, 17 years. So that's what I mean when it's crazy in that sense. I'm like, damn, it's like it just took some time,
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm curious, do you see, so the thing for me is at that time, I mean, hilariously enough, so when you released, or when you guys formed, say 1999, 2000-ish, and then you released that record in 2002, I think I was only about 10 years old at that time. So I had no perception of what life was as I do now, but I'm a little curious I don't know how entrenched you are in, say, the scene now if you really go to shows per se, but could you comment, or are there any insights on just the atmosphere around extreme metal during that time? Because it's so, I listened to a lot of music from the 80s, 90s, a lot of the great death metal stuff, Cryptopsy, whomever, like Gore Guts, those kinds of things, like very progressive sounding, very atonal, very weird and outlandish in some parts, especially Gore Guts. Those guys were like,
that's my shit, man. Right
there. Yeah,
that's
so good. But I'm curious for you, when you were getting kicked out of clubs or people were banning you. I mean, what about that? Because when I listened to your music on YouTube, I found, it wasn't the best rip, as YouTube rips typically are not that great of quality generally, but I did see a multitude of comments of people saying, oh man, I love these guys, etc. And these comments were left within the last couple years, and commenting on, how pivotal or how, forward thinking, if that's a correct way, or just how crazy and psychedelic as you described it was. But I'm just interested a bit in like what the mindset was back then, if there's any insight you could offer, like around that time, and why people may have been averse to that psychedelic, very trippy, millions of riffs per second sort of brutal death metal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a lot of it, like I always go back to is the hip hop samples. That's probably, a large part of it. No one was really doing shit like that back then.
Sure.
There were a lot of original bands, in the '90s. You just named some of them. You know what I mean? Like Gore Guts and like, big favorite of mine is Cynic.
Oh,
Or
yes.
I don't know. It's more of a hardcore band, but the New York Candiria. I mean, they were doing some fucking wild shit. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Jazz and death metal, all types of shit. And
Right.
so Dripping was like, you figure, we're a bunch of kids from street kids from New Jersey. You know what I mean? And we're putting hip hop samples and rap songs, and we're not dressed in death metal. When I would play my shows, I come with a Wu-Tang hat. You know what I mean? Because
Really?
I'm a big old school hip hop fan. That's probably
Interesting.
probably my my secret that nobody knows about. But I love a lot of different types of music. You know what I mean? Like I'm into jazz, death metal, hip hop, whatever you name it. That was kind of the thing, really. It's like we'd come on stage, you know what I mean? And, back then, I mean, I guess, you'd have like a, Carl Kanai shirt or a Fat Farm shirt you wear it, and, and you got my Wu-Tang hat on, and, that's how we would just come, you know what I mean? Because we were just street kids, that's what, so we all loved hip hop, we all loved rap, and it was like, why can't we put that in death metal?
Why not?
So, and, our friends were the same way. And, that's kind of probably what it was, coming through. It's like, usually you have the death metal guys, with the long hair and, and all black T-shirts and kind of stuff like that. And it's like, we're coming. It's like, what the fuck are these guys?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, what's this shit? You're coming over here trying to hijack it or something like that? What are you trying to do over here? That's kind of what it was. You know what I mean? It was like, don't come in our scene kind of thing. But that was on one. Not to say we had hate all over. I mean, we had a lot of love too. You know what I mean? As well. If you were more, open-minded, you loved this too. But we did get a fair amount of hate from that. And the reason why we got kicked out of clubs is not because people didn't like the music. It's because a lot of fights would start. You know what I mean? So that's what it was. One guy would say something, and someone from the crew would go, hit him in the jaw, and that's it. It was like, all right, and we get kicked out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, I could see that, though, especially if you're just at a show trying to do your thing and showcase your art and people are just talking shit to your face. You really, I don't know, I can imagine how that could be frustrating. And then, as you said, if you're, I don't know, it's fascinating just to hear what the environment was like around that. Because listening to the music that you produced on your LP, it just, I mean, even to today's standards, it sounds way more unique than a lot of the other death metal slop, whatever you want to call it, that comes out. There's so many albums that I listen to nowadays where you can look at the album artwork and the style of the logo and you can pretty much guarantee know what it's going to sound like if you have enough listening experience. It's like, oh, that's going to be this kind of band. It's going to be boring as shit or whatever, like super squeaky clean, and it just doesn't fascinate me. But when I did hear the hip-hop samples, I was like, what the fuck was that? But in a good way, because it's so novel. I really haven't heard that.
Well, like a Bruce Lee sample we put in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 'Cause we're all, it was like, we just put some, and then you got me fucking talking over it. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about like, it's basically an acid trip,
Right.
And the thing, what you were saying before is you were wondering how the connection, between God Body Disconnect and Dripping, it's sort of along almost the same theme. It was like I wrote the lyrics then, but it was based on like a short story that I wrote. So we kind of like basically, when I did the gutturals too on there. So when I'm doing the low vocals, it's like I'm kind of reading the story. There wasn't like any, set rhythm like a regular song would go. It's just I'm kind of reading the story. And it's really about a guy who just, kind of trips on acid, has a bad trip and just, falls and gets trapped in his inner self.
Okay.
And that's what it is. The acid part of it is not in God Body Disconnect, but the inner self realm of it, that's exactly. So that's what it is to me. I always had a fascination with that stuff, and dreams, and that always got me for some reason.
Interesting. Okay, and that as soon as you said the inner self and the short story, I'm like, okay, and my synapses started firing, and that makes a lot more sense to me now, because I was trying to get a grip on just that transition. And is it the case? I didn't do hefty enough research to go dig into the background of Dripping. I was able to glean just some cursory details, but was there? I know that you the band more or less dissolved shortly after the release of the debut LP. Was that just? I was curious if there were any insights as to what led to the dissolution of the band, or is it just, you were pretty young and eventually everybody just went their separate ways and, adult life, what have you? Just
No,
kind
no,
of.
we broke up in the studio.
Okay.
Actually, it wasn't because of a fight or anything. You know, what I mean, listen, I'm still friends with all of them.
Okay.
Tom Kiefer, the bassist, lives in my town. You know, we've been friends since high school. I'm still friends with him.
Sure, sure.
Sebastian, I once in a while we still do talk. I think he lives in Rhode Island now, so he's not around the area. But
Hmm.
all the old crew I still talk to. But what it basically was, when I was in the studio and I didn't plan on doing those talking parts,
Hmm.
to begin with. I didn't kind of tell the rest of the band. and
Sure.
um, and we're kind of struggling with how to do vocals because we wanted gutturals, and it's like, we didn't really have anybody that had really, really good gutturals. We had one guy, but a friend of mine, Frank, and he lived too far away, so we couldn't, it just kind of ended that way, the relationship as far as doing vocals. So we were in the studio recording the album, and I got in the mic and I started doing the gutturals, and after that I was like, I told Jim, the studio, the engineer, and I was like, just keep running. I was like, I want to do some talking vocals. Like, talking? I was like, yeah, let me try this out. Let's see how it works, So I just started reading some of the lyrics over it, and I was like, this sounds all right. And the rest of the band was like, yeah, that's hot. Let's keep that.
Hmm.
And that's just sort of how it went that way. And after all that, we finished the album. I sat there and I thought, I said, we've pushed the limits like really far with
Yeah.
what death metal is at this point. You know what I mean? Back in
Right.
like 2000, it was like,
Right.
I don't know how much more we can do,
Right.
with this. And it was like, I want to start exploring other things, like Sebastian and I wanted to do like a progressive, rock jazz project, sort of like Cynic. We were thinking about that. And I was
Sure.
always thinking about other music, and doing other things. And I couldn't just stick to one thing at that time, and it was
I
like,
see.
listen, I don't think we can take dripping any further, maybe we just drop this one, we'll just let it be, you
Right.
just let it be, let it hold and sit like that, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
never say never, we may get back together, I can't say never, but,
Right.
that's sort of what it was. There was no fighting or anything like that when we
Okay.
broke up. It was just like, listen, we can't, this is as far as we took it here, what
Yeah.
I mean? I think that's it.
And that,
Call it quits.
and I could see how that unfurls. I personally don't produce any music, but I could certainly understand the underlying sentiment, especially if you were, if you're like, oh, let's go do another album, but you want to be able to top what you did on your previous one, and I could imagine you wouldn't want to just force another cut of tracks out or another slab of tracks, and you're like, okay, this is just a rehashing of ideas of the first LP, and it's just not as interesting, or you just, like you said, you can't push it as far. I could see why you would want to, or why that would kind of end the project in a sense. That makes a lot of sense to me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, if you put your best forth, and that was it. That was the best we could do, I think. At that time,
Right.
and it was like, I don't think we can do any better than this. It was
Sure.
like, so why try to push it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
That was that.
And how was it? I'm curious too, just because of the love I've seen of some people remarking about the band. How is it kind of surreal to see people like just continually posting or making remarks about it to this day? Because I even saw some people. I think that there was this low resolution rip of a live show you guys did. I found on
You saw that
YouTube.
one?
Yeah, and I went and
That was with
perused.
Vomit Remnants. I don't know if you know Vomit Remnants. If you from Japan, Vomit Remnants.
No, are they good?
They're an old school death metal band. They're still around today. They're a pretty big
Oh shit.
Japanese band. And Brada Quinn played that show. Also, yeah, I forget who else, but yeah, that was a pretty low quality rip. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
old,
No,
VHS, VHS camcorder.
No, I think it actually added the granularity, the way it looked, how, gritty it looked. I think it was perfectly fitting for the music, and I was just surprised in a sense to see so many people saying, "Oh, thank you so much for uploading this. I've been wanting to see this band live in some dimension or another." And I was like, "Huh." It's just fascinating to see how people are so intrigued by the band so many years later, even though you haven't churned out any new music for so long. It's just fascinating to see the reception to it.
That's
nowadays.
probably what it is
Yeah.
that you haven't been out for so many years. You know what I mean? You cut it short. You know what I mean? It was like you came out with something. It was like, damn, cut it.
Yes.
And that's sort of what it is, I guess. I guess there's a fascination there. And, we have the Dripping Facebook page up. Yeah, like it's fascinating to me, I've done zero promotion on that page.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, we're not doing paid ads and all types of stuff, nothing. And it's like, I got like, I don't know, almost 6,000 follars. And it's like, damn, it's like, that was for me, that's a lot to look
Yeah.
at. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And it's like, I still get likes. I get, honestly, I get more likes on Dripping than God Body Disconnect,
Interesting.
And it's like, and I'm seeing it, I'm like, wow, I'm like, this has really come along, all these years. And it's like, like I said, it's humbling. I look at that, I'm like, that's something you made when you were 18, 19 years old. It's like still carrying to this day. It's
Yeah.
like people people want to buy shirts still, they sell out. It's like the LPs sell out, and it's like, it's really humbling.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate all that love.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about the project too is because when I saw one of your posts so long ago regarding God Body Disconnect, I believe you posted I can't remember what, I think it was like 2017 or something like that, where you said, you were I don't know if these were your exact words, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but you made a somewhat last minute decision, or you like to kind of work up the courage to get behind the kit to infuse some drumming into God Body Disconnect. I think it was on Sleeper's Fate specifically, or leading up to the release of that album, you made that remark. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was curious if, when you said, building up the, like, was there, in your mind, were there some reservations you had about infusing that texture or that flavor into the music, that you're like, I don't know how people are going to take this? Or like, what was the thought process behind that? We're transitioning a bit into God Body Disconnect now, but
that's fine.
know.
Yeah, it was, traditionally you don't really hear that, in dark ambient or ambient music.
Yes.
You won't hear like, drumming like that. You might hear
Right.
like some like tribal drumming or, like more minimalistic stuff, but to have like an actual live, drum set and you're playing on it and doing, some kind of beats like that, it's not really heard of too much. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Oh, I agree. I agree.
So, I listen, some followers know this, but I'll tell you the truth. Before I got on Cryo Chamber, I had no idea dark ambient was a genre. I'll be totally honest with you.
Okay.
I had no idea. I love movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
I love that kind of shit. And a lot of people do. But as far as knowing like real artists, real, H.M. Carceria and all these kind of things, I had no idea it existed.
Yeah.
So I have to, and when I did the album, I did Dredge Pearls and I sent it over to Simon, and he was like, I want to work with you on this. And I was like, oh, first of all, blew me out of the fucking water.
Really?
I didn't think anybody, because I had no idea what I was writing. That's what I'm trying to say. At the time, I had no idea. I wasn't writing dark ambient. I wasn't writing ambient. I had nothing to listen to as a reference. You know what I'm saying? I was just doing my own thing. And, and once I got on the label and once I got, on there, I started checking all the rest of the artists and I was like, nobody really uses drums like that, So I started to become a little more aware of, the genre, and that's why I was probably a little, nervous about putting something like that in there.
Okay.
But there's always that natural nervousness and stuff like that goes in the head, But in the end of the day, I got to do me.
Sure.
I gotta do something that makes me feel, makes me, happy. If I'm making music and doing it for just strictly for other people's purpose and nothing for me, it's like, what am I even doing it for?
Sure.
I'm listen, I'm grateful I have the fans I have. You know what I mean? I am.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, I can interact with them and talk with them and have anybody even listen to my music, because I'm just happy if one or two friends listen to it at the end of the day. That's
Sure.
all I really expect.
Right.
You know, I don't expect anything more, but, you know, that's pretty much it. I have to do what I need to do in the end of the day. You know, that moves me, you know?
Okay. Yeah. That makes total sense. I had no. Well, I did have an inkling of an idea about that, but I wasn't fully aware of that. But I was curious too. So, before delving a bit deeper into God Body Disconnect, I also wanted to try to glean a bit more insight into, from the time dripping dissolved or it just ended and things kind of just fizzled out, and then from that time, I don't recall the exact time frame, if it was immediately after you put the LP out under dripping that the band kind of stopped for the most part, like just after or right before it came out? Is that the case? Like 2002?
I mean, we made the decision to break up in the studio while we were recording the album.
Oh,
You know, still,
okay.
that's what it was. It was
Okay.
like, you know, right when it was just about finished, you know, we all sat down and that's when we made the decision, you know. You know, I take some
okay.
time for a record label to print and sign, you know, get you, you know,
Yes.
all types of stuff. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we never did anything. We never played any shows or anything after that point, after we were in the studio. That's it. It was
Okay. Okay. So with that, what I was curious about was specifically from the time that the band ended to the time you started working on God Body Disconnect. Were there any auditory explorations you were making, or were you relatively dormant from a musical expression perspective?
I didn't put anything out professionally, put it that way, on a label or
Okay.
anything like that. But I did continue to, you know, jam with, you know, a couple of the Dripping members with, you know, different projects, not death metal. Like I said, I had a black metal project, I had a post rock project.
Okay.
I had a dark jazz project. You know what I mean?
Damn,
I had a
okay.
whole bunch of different things that we did. Actually, one of the people that he's a good friend of mine. I jammed with him regularly. I think you might have reviewed his album. Tom from Gloomseeker. I don't know if you know that album.
Yeah,
that's a good friend of mine. Actually,
yeah.
Tom from Gloomseeker. We've been playing for many years together. You know.
Interesting. He reached out to me. What was it, like 6 months ago? I think he has a new LP on the horizon under Gloomseeker. I believe he did send an email saying, I listened to something, or he said, I'm a good friend of Bruce, and I was like, oh shit, like what the like I had no idea. But he sent me an email with regards to his debut EP, I believe, or his debut album that he released a little while back, and I found that to be very striking in a sense, because I don't know, he didn't give me too much other detail beyond that I can recall, but I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of, like, you know, we did a death metal band together after Dripping. It was Parasitoid. You probably can look it up on YouTube. It's Parasitoid, and I guess it's just, you put Parasitoid death metal, and you'll see. It's like a 3-song demo. I played drums on that. That was after Dripping, and we did that together, and then that band dissolved, and then we just started doing like so many different projects together, but, you know, just like personal projects that we never took, you know, any further than in the studio. You know what I mean? Just jamming and playing. We had ideas to do it, but, you know, it was like, it just never kind of came to fruition.
Sure.
Kind of thing. And then there was a moment when I was just, I guess, between, you know, right before, you know, I started the God Body Disconnect, you know, I moved away to West Jersey, and it was about an hour and a half from where I was living before. And, you know, it was close for friends to come by and jam, you know, whatever, when I was living close. But you're an hour and a half away, it's like, you know, it's kind of hard to come up there all the time and jam regularly. And it kind of fizzled away, you know, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do here? And I was like, you know, I play drums, okay, you know, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but I'm 100% self-taught. I mean, I don't know as far as reading music and scales and notes. No, don't talk to me about that, because I don't, you know, that's not, you know, I'm not a, you know, I'm like, you take like Duncan from, like, you know, Flowers of Bystander,
Right.
or, you know, like Simon Heath, like these are players, you know what I mean?
Yes.
These guys can play, you know what I mean? Like, and that's, it's a different ball game for me. You know what I mean? So, I was just stuck there, just not knowing what to do. And I said, shit, what the heck do I do? Am I going to make a project with drums only?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so I guess I sat, and it was a very, depressing moment in my life, because I always had music, to do something, whether it was putting out there or not. And I, just pulled myself up by the bootstraps. So listen, get your shit together, man. It's like, if there's no one around here to jam, you know what? You do your own shit, and try to figure it out, and I got myself a Korg Triton, synth. I got some studio speakers. I got Logic Pro, and I'm still working on Logic Pro today. And I got some shit together, and I started just playing, without any knowledge of how to play. You know what I mean? And it's like, I always knew what I like to hear, in bands. I always, kind of, I guess, not control that part, but, kind of urge the guitarist on, like, all right, listen, why don't you go down here, play the note down there a little bit, and why don't you make this change and do that change, and let's do this and that. I was always that guy. So I always knew what I wanted to hear and how to play. I just never had the confidence to actually sit down and try to play anything but drums, and that's sort of how it all started. And
how was that? Well, how was that experience for you, though, when you sat down and started? Were you pretty nervous about doing a lot of this or undertaking it yourself? Did it take a little bit for you to really get yourself in the groove, or feel comfortable doing what you are now doing, or just getting started? Like when you said, okay, I got to make this change. I'm going to start making music on my own without anybody else's help. And even if you may have not known what the hell you were doing per se, I mean, was there a lot of uncertainty around that, and did it eventually dissipate as you continued getting further along? Like how did that process unfurl for you?
I'll tell you the truth. I have uncertainty up until today.
Sure.
Every album I put out, I sit there before I send it to Simon. I'm like, God damn, is he gonna like this? Is this gonna be okay? Is this, have I gone off the rails? Am I, what am I doing here? I'm putting drums in this part. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm always like that. That's just part of, I guess who I am. I'm always the underdog. I'm always the guy that, never thinks much of himself, put it that way. You know what I mean? I'm not, I'm not overly confident in that self and in that sense. It took a little while, you know what I mean? Of course you start playing around with songs and, on the keyboard and, and I started getting some programs, and I, started using some MIDI and, I just kind of learned everything that way. And I never really learned, the correct way, I guess, how to, be a, to take it to be a real professional musician or a professional studio engineer. You know what I mean? I just kind of, I listen on my ears, that's kind of what it is for me. If it sounds good to me, and I'll keep tweaking it until it, it's 100% to my liking, to my ears. I don't have many studio tricks I use because I never had time to learn them, or the patience to learn them. I just want to sit down and play.
Right.
So. And
do you think in a sense that has lent itself to, I don't know, like from a musical compositional perspective, has that, I guess it would be hard, it may be difficult to draw a comparison, but do you think not having all of that professional backing per se, could you say that that's been somewhat liberating in a sense too, that you're just really doing what you think sounds right or sounds good to your ears, as opposed to getting super nitty gritty and technical and saying, oh, I'm hearing this weird frequency and this is sound, you're not getting mired in all these little details that maybe somebody more professionally may get mired in those details? I don't know if that's a fair way to assess it, but in that way, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, I get you. I guess, not that I feel liberated. I guess it is what it is. You know what I mean? I don't, when I guess when you're trained, and believe me, I wish I was trained. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I wish I really learned how to correctly, play the piano correctly, how to play the guitar, and all these kind of things. I wish I did. I'd probably be a much better player.
Sure.
But I guess at the same time, it kind of allows me just to listen to the inside, and what I want to hear. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, well, this note doesn't, normally go here. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And you shouldn't be doing this chord progression or doing that because it's not the way,
Staying with
goes.
key or something like that, or any.
Yes.
I have no fucking knowledge of this stuff either. People always, I've heard people talk about stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying to me right now. It just sounds good to me, and that's all I can say. Like that's usually the depth of insight I can offer on sort, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But that's
fascinating. I guess it. I don't have a box.
Yes.
Maybe around me. Not to say that professional musicians, guys know how to play, have a box around them either.
Yes.
Not to say that, but I have nothing here, so I'm just kind of going with what I think goes. And I kind of know. I know what notes sound good together. I mean, you have to. I'm not saying I'm a complete, dumb.
Yeah.
I know nothing. I know like, okay, this sounds good, that sounds good, this harmony goes good, and especially coming from a death metal, background, obviously death metal guitars use a lot of harmonies. Always harmonizing guitars and stuff. So that's something that sticks with me. I like that sound. I like harmonizing notes and things like that. And I guess that's maybe where that that kind of comes from with me.
Okay. So what was it like for you going from? So I guess we already have talked in part about the connection between Dripping, God Body Disconnect, at least with respect to the exploration of the inner self and such. But when it came to you producing Dredge Portals, I did glean a comment I believe you left on one of your Facebook posts. I can't remember the exact time frame, but I do recall you noting that you were unsure at the time of producing that record if you were ever going to release it out into the world. And you said something to the effect of, like you changed your mind for some reason. And I don't think you detailed the reason, but I was curious what compelled you to actually send the album along to Simon, and what, just that whole process of piecing the album together and then saying, as opposed to having this as a personal thing that I want to keep to myself, like what compelled you to take that first step or that leap into saying, okay, let's send this off and see if somebody is really into it or not?
It was a very, it was a very interesting period of my life at that time, and when I was writing the album, like I said, I had no idea, what dark ambient was, and I didn't have any of the confines, even what to do. I just was kind of just making a story about a guy getting shot and ending up in a coma. Now he's trapped in his inner self, and he has to just kind of travel inside the world, whatever whatever happens within there. And I didn't think about releasing it, because I didn't, I didn't know what kind of music it was.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't think anybody's doing this, kind of stuff. What is this? And,
yes.
So I had my influences are, not dark ambient or ambient. You know what I mean? I don't have any dark ambient influences. I mean, now obviously, I'm a little more entrenched in the world. I listen to a lot of artists, and of course things, stick to me sometimes,
Right.
But I didn't know that was a major part of the reason. Was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just keep this to myself. I'm showing like, my friend Tom from Dripping. I'm like, what do you think? He's like, yeah, it's good. It's just, I don't know what the fuck it is. I'm like, yeah, neither do I. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just went on Bandcamp one day, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, all right, I'm just searching around, and, I'm looking, and I come across Cryo Chamber, and I'm saying, what is this Cryo Chamber? And I look it up, and I start reading about it, and I listened to, one thing, I think I actually listened to Council of Nine, Max, big shout out to Max too. I did the Locust Arcadia album with him. That's another phenomenal player right there.
Yes.
And, I'm listening to that, I'm like, I don't sound exactly like that, I guess there's, I can see some similarities. There's a root there, there's something I can grab onto. And I started listening to a couple of the artists on there, and, I came across Simon stuff, and I'm like, all right,
Sure.
I don't know. Let me give this a shot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe just not keep it to myself, and let me see what's up. You know what I mean? And I sent it along to him, and the guy, Simon got back to me, right away, and I guess the rest is history.
That's fascinating, especially from the perspective of just hearing that you didn't have really any perception whatsoever about ambient, dark ambient, what have you, because I mean your album to me, at least Dredge Portals, all the other ones do too. It's just it does feel quite at home on the Cryo Chamber label, and it's just fascinating to hear that you really did not have a perception of what the genre was, yet you produced an album that sounded like there's a kinship between it and others on the label.
I did, yeah. I mean, it's still, I guess it boggles my mind today.
Yeah.
How I fell upon it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's just, that's kind of what it was. And I guess the thing too, I didn't know, and I guess the thing too that kind of held me back was, I haven't really released anything, in
Sure.
God knows how many years,
Right.
and I've kind of been away for a long time. And I'm always the quiet guy, I mean, I'm that guy kind of, like I said, in the background, that I don't do many Facebook posts. I'm not, well known on social media, even on my personal page. It's like, it takes a lot of, encouragement for me to even, write posts. I mean? I don't, in my normal day-to-day life, I don't share feelings too much, and that's
Sure.
just kind of what it is all my life. Growing up as a kid, I never kind of expressed myself, kind of had any feelings, you know what I mean? So it was, everything was kind of blocked out. So that kind of went into me too. It's like, hey, you've been away for like, 10, 12 years now. I don't know. What are you doing here? You're kind of putting yourself on the, out in the open here. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen to some of this stuff you're doing, and it's like, do you really want to do this? When Simon wanted to get me on the label, it's like, there's no turning back. You know what I mean? You're out there,
Right.
It scared me a little bit,
But did you end up feeling pretty content, or were you pretty ecstatic to learn that Simon wanted to work with you? I mean, it sounds like, based on what you said, he got back to you pretty damn quick with what you sent along to him. So were you pretty surprised by his reaction?
Of course. I'm like I told, I'm so surprised today when I send him an album. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sitting there, I'm, crossing my fingers, I'm biting my nails saying, shit, is this the one he's going to say that I need to, put some more work into? You know what I mean? I don't know, and, that's, I don't know, so I fell over my chair. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh shit, he wants it on the label? It's going to be on the fucking label now? What do you fucking care? I'm used to playing in the fucking basement with my friends for the past, fucking 10 years. I haven't been on a label since I'm 18.
Right.
I don't know anything. I haven't played a show since then. It's like,
No, it's fascinating. Yeah. It's just fascinating to hear all of that. And I'm just very surprised to hear that, like, that's just how it all came together. It seems like the album, at least Dredge Portals, or speaking about Dredge Portals specifically, that it had a very particular, there's a very particular sense that trickled or percolated from the atmosphere. And I don't know, it's just fascinating to hear how you produced it the way you did, and you're just like, I have no idea what the hell I'm really doing, but here we go, and I'm just gonna say, or you don't know what it is, and it just worked out the way it does, and now you have 3 full lengths on the label, and then you have some other collaborative works as well with other artists, which is fascinating too. But I wanted to ask too about on Dredge Portals, and I guess we could even relate this in part back to Dripping, in the sense of, and I don't know, sometimes my questions, just fair warning, sometimes they can be a little, sometimes I ask questions and I don't even know if I'm asking the right question or if it even makes sense. Sometimes I've definitely asked people questions and they're like, what the hell did you just ask? It's like, I have no idea. I just had a thought and hopefully I get it across. So sometimes it could be a little hit or miss. But I was curious in part about your fascination with, the subconsciousness of the self and what is inherently compelling to you about exploring the inner self. I guess there is room to talk about it from both Dripping and God Body Disconnect, but I really wanted to get in part at the conceptual framework with which you hang so much of your God Body Disconnect work on, with respect to like the primary LPs you've released, the individual that's in a comatose state, and kind of how that formulated, where that idea really stems from, and if it's something you've been kicking around for several years or if it was just a spur of the moment idea, those sorts of things.
Well, with Dripping, I'd say it was, guess I was having a lot of fucking nightmares back then, you know, and really bad dreams. And you know, on the original first release,
Yeah.
the Dripping album, the lyrics are inside. There's, like I said, they're a short story, and they're about a guy who goes and, you know, on an acid trip and just gets stuck inside his inner self, and
Right.
he starts seeing all, you know, types of murderous shit. You know, it's brutal death metal, you know. So talking about killing, you know, people and killing them, you know, just seeing things and, you know, just all these weird fucking shit. And that's kind of what it was there. And it was basically I kind of based it on my dreams and nightmares at that point, you know, because I was having a lot of fucking bad nightmares. Not saying I'm having nightmares about killing people, you know what I mean?
Oh, of course.
You know, I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer here or something. But,
right.
You know, it's just that I was having some, you know, it was just weird fucking freaky shit going on in my life.
Sure.
And that's what that was based on. And I guess the idea of the inner self, it's just an unknown world. Anything can happen there. It's like a dream, you know. You can anything can happen in a dream, you know. And that's kind of what fascinates me. You know, there's no time. There's, you know, logic behind anything, you know. And I guess that's what it was with Dripping. With God Body Disconnect. I mean, I'll be honest. I you know, when I first started writing the album, I didn't really know exactly what I was writing about. And you know, I guess the field recordings kind of came later, and you know, I just started, you know, putting some hospital beeps and all these things, and then, you know, the idea came to me, oh, this could be about a guy in a coma, you know, who's been shot, you know, and that stuff fascinates me to begin with, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm from North Jersey. I don't know if you ever watched The Sopranos.
You know, that is a show God, I need to be more culturally enriched, because I've heard so many people talk so highly
It's
of
a
that
fucking
show.
great show.
Yeah,
It's a great show.
Some people they still say to this day, they say there's really almost nothing better than that show. They say, like, for the time it came out, and even to this day, they're like, it's so hard for any other shows to really top it. And it's like, well, why the fuck haven't I gone down and watched this shit? And I still haven't.
I highly suggest it.
Okay.
That show, you know, you'll see in the first credits to go along, they show, you know, different areas in North Jersey. That's where I am. You know what I mean? That's my world there. You know what I mean? So, listen, I grew up on the docks all my life. Working on docks, working in warehouses, you know, from a very young age. I've been around, you know, that kind of thing, you know, and, you know, those stories that the older guys always used to tell, you know, around you, you know what I mean? And you hear these things, you hear these great storytellers, and that kind of stuff, I guess, just influenced me. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, that, you know, I'm a big fan of Robert De Niro and Goodfellas.
Yes.
You know, that kind of shit. That just, you know, if you're from Jersey, especially North Jersey, it's like, if you don't know that fucking movie, it's like, what the fuck are you from? You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're from Mars. It's like everybody knows it, because everybody can relate to that. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. You know, you've seen some of that, you've heard some of it. You know, that's just, you know, kind of what it is. And, you know, my background, you know, working on the docks, working on the things, it's, you know, I'm from a blue collar world. So, you know, you see things, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of stuff influenced me. But so that's where the whole thing of, you know, someone getting shot, put in a coma kind of thing went. And I was there with that. And, you know, I didn't really take it any further in my head. You know, I just was writing a story, you know, and each track was supposed to be a deeper descent into his inner self. You know, he gets farther and farther away from reality.
Right.
And that's sort of just why I went with it. You know, I didn't realize what exactly, you know, that this kind of, you know, mirrors my life in some sense until it was, you know, pretty much almost done, you know, at the end of the album. And then it started to dawn upon me. It's like, you know, maybe this guy in a coma, you know, maybe this guy, you know, somewhat could relate to you in, you know, in your life. And that sort of hit me, and I was like, it was like a, you know, a revelation. You know, you figure out that I'm doing something like that. You know, if you want to get into the vocals and, you know, the things like that. Yeah. I don't really know what I'm saying at the time. You know, I know it sounds a little weird, but
no. I can understand that. Yeah.
I do most of my vocals, you know, deep in the night, maybe 2-3 in the morning. You know what I mean? Everybody's asleep in the house. You know, I have a ton of fucking chamomile tea and herb, and I'm just fucking sitting there. And it's like, I'm listening to the music. You know, I have the music and I have some soundscapes going on and maybe an environment, you know, field recording, and I'll just get the mic out and things just come at me. You know, and I just talk. I talk for, you know, 2 hours at a time, 3 hours, and just leave the mic recorded. And, I'll come back and edit it and I'll listen to what I'm saying, but it's not like I have a really set thing to say. You know what I'm saying? I don't really write my shit down. I'm not really, I don't think I'm an actor in that sense. You know what I mean? I don't think I can act really well. You want to give me some lines to read. I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that's I don't know. It's a weird thing that's going on with me. You know what I mean? It's like something is speaking to me. That's how I feel, like something's speaking to me. And I figured it out after Dredge Pearls. I'm like, I listen back to a lot of my recordings, the things I'm saying, like, obviously, Rise of the Dormant Host, when I'm saying there, and Dreaming of Glaciers and Lost in the Astral World, these monologues I have, and I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? It's like, this stuff is not sitting on the surface with me, and to go back what I said earlier, at a very young age, I learned to block out things, and I mean, obviously we're going to talk about God by Disconnect. I got to get personal a little bit,
Right.
So, I learned to block things out as a kid. I learned to block, traumatic things and bad memories and bad feelings, and I kind of just, blocked them and put them down, somewhere. And I used to daydream a lot, and that's why I got this inner self thing. I have these, daydreams in my head and places I go and things like that. And, I guess a kid does that to, for safety, I guess, because, some things are too negative around him. He doesn't, want to see those kind of things. And I kind of learned that my whole life, and that's even followed me till today. But after I was done with Dredge Portals and I'm listening back to these things, these vocals, what I'm saying, it's like, someone's trying to tell me something inside, something that's been trying to get out, that I've been, hiding away all these years.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you block things, you may be able to bury them as deep as you can, you know what I mean? And you can do that, but it's going to bite you back, pal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't give them a place, a proper burial and deal with it, it's going to bite you back. And that's sort of what happened to me during a time while I'm writing Dredge Portals. I was getting a lot of panic attacks, depression, and I've dealt with depression and things like that my whole life, but it got to a point where it was reaching a really bad peak, at that point in time. And I guess I listen back to it, and it's, these things kind of sound like there was either a warning, like, sometimes you reach a point where you just can't see ahead of yourself anymore. I say that on there, and it's like I'm, kind of almost saying, listen, if you don't get yourself out of this place that you're in, you know what I mean? You better catch the next ride coming. There's not going to be another one coming, pal. I said it at the end.
Right.
And it's like, you better get yourself out of here, because if you stay here, you ain't going to be here no more. You know what I mean? And that's something was talking to me inside. So none of this stuff is on the surface. I may seem like in my posts and whatnot that I'm, I'm well versed on my own inner self.
Right.
I'm not. When, I'm just like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? I'm learning my way. I'm learning myself as I go, And, I'm not sitting there and I'm trying to write something quirky or something that makes sense or something that's, interesting. When I write a post, I've learned something on that day by maybe listening to my music on the car ride or something like that. And I didn't think about that before.
Right.
It's interesting. Maybe that's what this is about, maybe. And, that's when I'll do a post or something. And it's like, that's what the song's about. You know what I mean? That's what it could be. And so that's really what it is.
Yeah. And it's fascinating to me to hear that, because I thought a lot of the stuff, the monologues, or at least the spoken word passages, I thought you just chiseled all that stuff out, or they were some sort of poems or some other insights you wrote down on some a notepad, and then you just read it off. I had no idea that it was just this natural outpouring in the dead of night. I would have never pieced that together, I don't think. Because I don't know, there's just like this genuineness that pours from the delivery. And is it the case for you? So a quality that I find fascinating, especially, and I don't know I don't know how well I can frame the question, but what's inherently compelling to me is hearing how you talk about these things, or you say these things out loud, and you don't even necessarily know at the moment that you're saying them what you're really saying, or you don't really understand the underlying meaning. And is that, I'm trying to think of the right way to ask the question. Is there, I don't know how to get at the essence of it. Is it just the case that when you're saying these things out loud, you're just saying things that are coming to mind and you're not really worrying too much, or you don't really give it much thought as to what it means at the moment, and you just hope that someday later on it will make sense to you? Like when you're going through and say you record 2 hours of talking and then you piece it, you take some snippets and edit them down. How do you know what pieces you said are really sticking with you, or are there just certain things that you say when you listen back, they just have like this quality that kind of bites you a bit, and you're like, oh, there's something more profound that I'm not understanding at this moment, and therefore I need to include it in the album? Or I'm just trying to get a sense of how that works, if that makes sense. I don't know if I did the best job explaining
It does
that.
because listen, what we're talking about, to begin with, it doesn't make much sense. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To think about what the heck, this guy's sitting there with a microphone, he's talking, and he doesn't know what the hell he's saying. Was he in a trance? You know what I mean? But I'm sort of in that meditative state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like in a place where I just close my eyes and, I kind of just disappear, and I'm listening to the music, or I'm listening to, a field recording, or I'm in a certain place. And, the way I kind of, I'd be honest with you, I can't listen to myself talk on these recordings if I know it's me.
Okay.
And obviously it's me,
Yes.
obviously I'm doing it, but it can't sound like me. You know what I mean? And and when I listen back to my recordings, it's not me in my head. It's like, that's something else. That's somebody else inside of you talking to you. Somebody's telling you something and you need to listen. Somebody's there. Someone's telling a story, someone's something. And it's like, it doesn't sound like me. I guess the inflection of my voice, whatever it is, it's it's just sort of what it is. I can't believe it's me. If I believe it's me, I erase it.
Right.
I'm not going to use it because it doesn't sound genuine.
Right.
It needs to sound like I'm listening to a story. I'm trying to, that's sort of what it is,
Okay. Interesting. And how do you, from the perspective of piecing this together, getting into that more, I know trance may not be the right word, but when you're going, you're doing this the dead of night, is there any moment that when it's an appropriate time to go do those recordings? Like, how do you know, or like, when do you sit down? Is there a feeling that is bubbling underneath the surface that you're feeling, and you just tell yourself, okay, I need to like process this, and I'm gonna just wait until the dead of night to start talking about things like these abstract ideas and see what comes of it? Like, how do you know when to go do these sorts of recordings, if that's a fair question to ask?
Yeah, it's usually when, majority of the music is close to being done, not in a complete album. I mean, like a song at least,
Okay.
So I listen to something, and usually I don't know, if I'm listening to it, a lot of time I like to, bounce my, tracks before I, fully mix them, whatever, and try to listen to them once in a while, either in the car or, whatever, in headphones, when I'm not at home. And, I'll get a sense of like, that sounds like maybe something could be said over that. Maybe something there something's kind of poking at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This could be, and, I'll listen to it, after I'll come home, and, if I have the urge to want to sit down and record, I'll do that, and I'll sit down and, and I'll just go ahead and start saying things, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Start talking to it. I don't know. It's not something that's on the surface, what I'm trying to say. So it's hard. It's, almost hard for me to even conceptualize it myself. You know what I mean? 'Cause it's like, what's going on over here? It's like,
right.
But like I said, when you block things out, they're going to come out, and they're going to come out eventually. And, these are kind of the things I guess I've blocked out maybe. I'm not really too sure, but maybe they are. Something is inside me that wants to talk. That wants to say these feelings that I could never get out any other way. So that's sort of what God, Body, Disconnect is to me. But don't get me wrong, I'm not purposely doing that either. This was the thing after I got finished with Dredge Portals. I was like, the album was out and I was getting reviews in, and it was like, I met everybody on the label, and it was like, my God, I haven't, been social like this in years,
Right. Right.
and it's like, I loved it, and it was like, my God, I'm meeting people, and, and I'm meeting fans, and people are connecting with the music, and and at the same time, I'm learning about myself, saying, this might have to really do with you, some of this, you know what I'm saying here,
Yeah.
and like that was something that was like also clicked with me, and I was riding that high, and I started to, once I realized, I said, something's talking to you inside.
Yeah.
A lot of this music mirrors some of your life, a lot of your life actually, and when you figure that out, you want to start digging more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, something's there, and I was like, well, how much more is there?
Right.
Let me, like, maybe if I can go down and record myself more, or maybe if I can start, I don't know what, just anything, just finding out more about what is there, because
Yeah.
it's interesting to find out there's something like that. There's an inner self. I think we all have an inner self. It's not just me. I don't think I'm, some kind of, alien over here or anything. I
Right.
think you have
Right.
an inner self. I do. Everybody does, just that we're not aware of it.
Right.
And especially in my case, I wasn't aware of it whatsoever because I blocked anything out that, I learned how to be like that. I guess the environment I grew up in, it's like, even today, the environment, you kind of got to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's you got to be tough. I mean, you can't show people your feelings. You can't do this kind of stuff, and it's, you'll get taken advantage of, and it's
Yeah.
not, it's hard to do. So, but I started to, delve in more on that, and I said, well, something's going on here.
Yeah.
Let me figure this out. And I started to do that. And, I was writing Sleeper's Fate.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started writing Sleeper's Fate, I started recording myself, and, I literally got, my negative voice on tape, and I was listening back to it. And I was saying, what the fuck am I saying here?
Right.
This shit is fucking scary.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear this shit. I don't want to fucking hear this kind of shit.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? It was like, a negative, a real negative voice. I think we all have a negative voice inside of us,
Sure.
a little voice that tells you, hey, you're doing something wrong, and makes you feel bad. And, the majority of that is, makes depression and whatnot. So I was trying to find out as much as I can, and dig and dig and dig. And I dug to the point where I had the fucking, my own negative voice sitting on my fucking shoulder all day,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, just, and a lot of panic attacks were going at that time, during Sleeper's Fate. And it was like, I had to sort of detach. I learned at that point, say, stop trying to figure everything out. You know what I mean? It'll come in time. This is not, just live. You know what I mean? Don't bother yourself with what's going on the inside, because you got no fucking control over it anyway, pal. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't know what's going on. It's like a car down there. You know what I mean? It's always fucking driving, but no one's behind the wheel. And it's just, that's the way it is. And I had to sort of really go into fantasy mode in my head, because I didn't want to write it out. I didn't want to write, a biography of myself. And that's not my intention whatsoever in any of the albums I do, is writing a biography of myself. I don't.
Right.
That's not fun for me. You know what I mean? It's not fun for me whatsoever. I can't do that. I need to have a story. That's how I do it on the blinders,
Mm-hmm.
and just go and write. That's just how I have to operate. That was a long answer. I don't know where I went with it, but
No. It's just very illuminating to hear all these details, because my understanding of the project is deepening through all this dialogue, because I'm sure that you've illuminated this in interviews past or something of the sense, but maybe I'm mistaken. I did what research I could in the time I had, but I just haven't understood, or I didn't realize there was this much depth to, at least specifically the monologues, and just the words that you say, because there is something that I find, now that you say it, because I hear your voice here, and I hear your voice on the album. I'm like, okay, well, it's obviously, to me, it sounds like the same voice, but the way you're describing the voice on the album, my perception of the albums are shifting in a way now, and it's like, oh, okay, I see what is going on with you, especially as you say, it's not really you that's saying it, and I know it's an abstract thing to say, but I understand, like, the inner self and trying to channel that, those sentiments or those remarks. And even though, I don't know, there's something about just the rawness in which you deliver the words, that there's something just so candid about it, and there's something so like matter of fact and insightful, yet it's not, decorated in these ornate words. Like I think I said this with Connor. It almost seems like it's a longtime friend that you can really just pick up a conversation with, and they just have all these insights about their life and yours, and it's, I don't know, there's something that just oozes from the voice that makes you, I mean, it certainly makes me feel uneasy in certain portions, but in other respects it seems to grace a nerve that I just haven't really done enough introspect to understand about myself, and maybe that's one of the reasons why some of the monologue to me is so inherently compelling about the project, because it's something I really haven't stumbled across in many other albums either. I mean, I don't really go out of my way to seek out spoken word per se, but from the dimension of doing, melding it into your compositions, it's utterly fascinating to hear how that works. So
yeah, I mean, it's, it sort of gives me a perspective also of what I'm writing about sometimes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because I don't, now with the last album, Mist Between Mirrors, I didn't really want to have something set that I was writing about. I hate boxes. I hate to be put in a box, and it's like, all right, so you got an album about, a guy in a coma on the first one, and he's in the coma again, and we're going through his life, and now you have to continue the guy in a coma again.
Right.
It's like, it puts me in a box, and,
Yep.
it's the same kind of box I was in with Dripping, at the end of the game. It was like, all right, we did everything I wanted to do here. Now, what am I now I have to be sort of in a box to kind of match that or top that, and it was like, I can't, so I wanted to do something where I didn't have to think about, continuing the story, even though naturally it did continue it. It's that's it's definitely in the same world. It's definitely the same world. Everything I do is most likely going to be in the same world, besides Miles to Midnight. That was something I was able to get on the drums, and obviously do other things, and it was like I was able to free myself of constantly looking to the inside all the time, or looking to continue a storyline.
Right.
And I just said, let me just write. I just started writing things, whatever, just sitting down and playing, and if I hear something in my head, so let me put rain there, let me put this there, and with no particular, rhyme or reason, on the surface at least.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing on the surface. I can't write something happy, something sad, something scary, or whatever kind of emotion. I can't write with emotion on the surface. I cannot. You know what I mean? It's probably the reason why I'm never going to be a professional musician doing, movie scores, and I'm not going to say, well, give me something sad now, and give me something here. And it's like, well, I don't know how to do that.
Right.
I just know how to sit and write.
Right.
And when I start to feel inside, that's when I know I got something. When I start to get the tingles on my back, or like I'm on the verge of crying. I haven't cried since I'm fucking 4 years old. I don't know what crying is. You know what I mean? That's not in my repertoire. It's not in my fucking concept, to cry. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? And it's like when I start to feel overwhelming emotions when I'm writing something, like, that's something. You got something there.
Right.
That's it. You got something. And I was listening, when you guys reviewed, you and Connor, when you did the the Mist Between Mirrors, you were doing that, review on it.
Yeah.
You were talking about how it's like a weird meld of emotions. It's like you feel melancholy at one point, but then there's a level of hope.
Yes.
And then there's also a brooding little, darkness in there, some fear in the bottom. It's like, and I never thought about it. And I'm listening to you say this. I'm like, yeah, he's fucking right. It's like, I got to feel every fucking, like I have to feel an overwhelming amount of emotion, in order for me to feel, put it that way.
Right.
Because I'm so closed off, on my in my regular life. I'm closed off, so there's no talk of feelings. And that's when I know I got it. So it's like, I guess I have to have this overwhelming feeling of just like a fucking flood coming through. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it gets me almost to fucking cry, and then that's it. That's sort of how I write my music. That's the marker for me. It's not the marker of whether the story is good or whether, the song has, it's just, it flows nicely. And obviously all that stuff matters too, you know what I mean? But the real marker is, do you fucking feel something?
Yeah.
You know, that's it, and that's the final straw for me. You know, that's what it matters.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear too, and I appreciate you listening to the podcast that we did of the album, because generally, and you may have gotten this sense from Connor and I, we're both, we're not the most well articulated, well understood, most well read, seasoned
Come on,
persons.
guys. You guys have a good time on the show. That's what it is. You know,
Yeah.
You don't want to fucking be academic the whole time.
No.
He's doing this here and he's doing this. No, you guys, I enjoyed it. Believe me. I enjoyed,
No,
all the things.
And I sincerely appreciate that, because sometimes, with how amorphous dark ambient can be, it's sometimes like, it's so, I guess it, in some respects, we want to try to understand what the artist is doing, but I guess one of the qualities of dark ambient that's so alluring and what keeps me coming back to it, I listen to dark ambient, I listen to dark ambient albums off of Cryo Chamber every night before I go to sleep. I bet Simon sometimes maybe looks at like the streams of some of the albums and he's like, who the fuck listened to this album for 8 times, 9 times yesterday? And it's probably just me looping it as I sleep, because that's what I do, because there's something so inherently compelling about them to me. And I don't know, it's just so, there's so much fun to be had, and so much, like, just the exercise in thinking about what these albums are articulating, even if we don't always get it right. Not to say we even do get it right. It's just always fun to try to get at what the thrust of the album is, or what it actually made us feel, because, I listen to that kind
that's
of...
That's all that feel. You know what I mean? It doesn't
Right.
really matter how I feel at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? It matters how it affects you and what you feel. And that's, I guess, the beauty of dark ambient, It can do that. And even stories that are, kind of, set in stone, these kind of stories, this story, Nicole, his albums, he has he follows, as many albums in the same theme, same storyline, you know what I'm saying? And of course he has something particular that he's writing about, but it may not necessarily mean that for you. You know what I mean? And that's okay.
Could
and
you
that's
know
okay.
who was the just because the audio dipped out for a split sec? What was the artist on that? I'm sorry.
Oh, Simon Heath, Atrium Carceri, his project.
Okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean? He has a very specific, thing that he does.
Are you still? I'm
something else to you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm losing. I just lost a little bit of connection there for a split second.
Oh, you did? All right.
No, it's all.
You hear me now?
Yeah, you're all good. Yeah, I assume that it's just internet connection. It's never it's never perfect, unfortunately. But I gleaned most of what you said. I just want to make sure I didn't lose you entirely. But there is a quality about that it's just inherently compelling, and I wanted to try to get at more qualities of The Mist Between Mirrors and some of the other albums. So I guess we already have touched a titch on the conceptual framework and exploring the inner self, but what's fascinating to me, I want to ask this before I forget to ask it, because it was bubbling up in my mind. So what is it like for you when you compose an album, or you're working on a record, and you're having this outpouring of emotion, and you're putting so much work and thought into a record, and then so many months or even years later you can listen to a track and it can change your perception, or you can feel like you're elucidating some aspect of yourself that you didn't realize at the time of actually recording that piece. I'm trying to get at that a little bit, because it's just compelling to me to hear that you may write something and you don't necessarily even know what it means, even with the monologue, but maybe a year or two later you can listen to a track and be like, okay, my perception of this has changed, even though, you wrote it a couple years ago and it was unbeknownst to you what it may have meant. But just having that perspective, like that hindsight on tracks you compose, how is that for you? Is there something, is it elucidating for you? Is it something that you in some part appreciate, or you really love about the craftsmanship of the music? I'm just trying to get a sense of what that feeling is like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, these are living, breathing songs to me. Living, breathing albums, living, breathing concepts. When I write it, maybe, when I'm done writing it and, the album's finished, it means one thing to me,
Yeah.
And then a couple months later, it means something else. And then, like I said, I'll do a post on, Facebook, saying something about the track, it's like, and then I learned, just that morning, that could mean that too. You know what I mean? There's always about, you always say two sides of the coin, and my music is about four sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Everything means something, and it's true, and also means something else on the other end, and maybe, two or three more things.
Right.
So it's like it's almost like a puzzle to me, because when you're dealing with the inner self, you know what I mean? It's not a tangible thing. You know what I mean? When you're dealing with things like that, it's really not. And, everything is kind of in code to me. It's like something, this music is speaking in code, and I don't know. It is fascinating to me. You know what I mean? It does open my eyes. When I find something out about it. And I listen back. It makes me smile. Because I figured something out. I figured out what that flood of emotion meant. To me. At the time, and it has to consistently give me a flood of emotion. That's the thing too with me. Like it can't just give it to me one time, and it's like, that was, listen, you play in a band, and it's like, guitarist comes out with a riff.
Yes.
It was sick. It's like, damn. It's like, and then he plays the same shit tomorrow. Like, all right.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good.
Yeah, I get you.
For you know what I mean? And that happens. That happens once in a while. You know what I mean? And if it does, it's a no-no. I won't indulge it any further. You know what I mean? But it has to consistently do it to me. But it makes me feel different things all the time. What I'm basically trying to do is, when I'm writing something, is just feel. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to feel anything. Just feel, fear right now. Like, this is a dark place I'm writing. This is like, in the middle of a cave and the water's dripping. Or I'm trying to feel, just anything. You know what I mean? Not a particular set feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm not trying to feel happy or feel good or anything. I don't know. I really don't know how to do that. And on command. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is illuminating.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
No, it is. It kind of lights something up inside you. To kind of figure out that something's going on. There's something going on inside that is kind of dictating the way we feel. I mean, how do you know what kind of thoughts come to your head throughout the day? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah,
just shoot.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, at least half the time, I'm just trying to zone out and not think about all the shit that's running through my skull a mile a minute. It's just like there's so much white noise. There seems to be of thoughts where there's so much shit going on, and you just try to drown it out, for lack of a better term, or lack of a better phrase or a word, right? It's like like trying to cope with all the even floods of emotions, what have you, just like trying to keep some sense of consistency throughout your day-to-day, so it's not just a train wreck of emotions or, panic attacks or anxiety attacks, what have you. Yeah.
I mean, you try to drown that out, and you do that for 30-something years.
Yes.
And they sit, inside, and they don't go away. They just grow. And they turn blacker and blacker,
right,
by the day.
Yeah.
And more potent. And eventually it's got to come out. It's going to come out in the form of anxiety attacks or depression or, thoughts or whatever it is. And, it happens all the above to me, when it comes out. That's basically, I think, what writing this music is for me. It's sort of like an outlet for me to get these things out, whether I understand them or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? And at the same time, it's fun, to say, all right, I'm playing music and this is fun, that I'm figuring this stuff out. And it's fun for me to have a story, about a protagonist, in the inner self and, and the things he finds. It's fun, it's like, I'm not purposely doing any of this, you know what I'm saying? I'm not sitting there saying I want to be emotional, I want to do this, I want to feel, that's not what I'm after. That's not even what I'm doing, you know what I mean? It's
sure.
It's just it's interesting that you can feel something, like you and Connor were talking about how you have these, a lot of these memories that come.
Yes.
That was coming, and you didn't know things that you never really thought about, in so many years, and it's like, well, that's the same shit that's happening to me.
Yeah.
I'm just like you. I'm no different.
Right.
I'm not some fucking guru here that, is in tune with himself and I know everything that's going on. You know what I mean? That's not at all.
Yeah. I need to remember to get some of those images that Connor said he was piecing together on his phone, like the little shoddily drawn kindergarten-esque things. I forgot to ask him to send those to me. I should send those to you at some point because I thought that was hilarious.
I'd love to see that.
So could you, like, is there an insight you could note on, like, one of the more, I don't know if profound is the right word, but is there a specific track or a specific moment that you've had post an album release, you know, Sleeper's Fate, Dredge Portals, Miss Between Mirrors, where you sat down and listened to one of your albums and it really struck you? You're like, oh shit, that's what this track is about. Like, is there a specific track you could note in the experience you had with that, coming to that realization, you know, be it catharsis or some other feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could say that with everyone, you know what I mean? But,
okay.
You know, I can say that, you know, especially if there's vocals on it.
Yeah.
But, you know, when let's say, you know, off of Dredge Portals, you know, Lost in the Astral World, you know, like I said, the last thing I say is, you know, you better catch the next ride getting out of here.
Yes.
Because there ain't going to be another one coming, pal. You know what I mean? That thing, it's like, that was a message to me, a warning. You know, like, hey, listen, you know, get yourself out of this hole. You know what I mean? You can't stay here. Because if you stay here, you don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And we don't want to go down that road.
Right.
You know, pull yourself out. Pull yourself out of this. Pull yourself out of the darkness. You got to do it. And that's sort of what sticks with me. You know, that message on the Miss Between Mirrors.
Yeah.
You know, when I did the vocals, I sort of call back to that. You know, because I say, I say the same line as I did in Lost in the Astral World. You know, it's the same beginning line. You know, sometimes you reach a point you just can't see ahead of yourself anymore. And you know, that was a calling back to that, I guess. You know, also when I can't, you know, you look in the mirror and you can't see anything you recognize anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that is going back to Dredge Portals as well. You know, Dreaming of Glaciers. You know that. You know, because I talk about, you know, if you can't, you know, if the mirror and what you see in the mirror and whatnot, you know, I guess that was a calling back to that. I guess maybe I was in the same place again that I was in Dredge Portals, you know, just in, you know, frame of mind for personally.
Sure.
You know,
it's just it's fascinating to hear just how that works, though. How you're almost, it sounds like in a sense, and you can please feel free to correct me or, you know, say, oh, you're a dumbass. It's totally fine. It's just fascinating to hear how it's almost like how you said you're giving yourself a warning, or there's some sort of, it's almost like you're leaving like a trail of breadcrumbs for yourself. So if later on in life you get back into that downturn, or like that, you know, that bottomless pit that you feel like you may be in, it's almost like those albums can serve as a way to upend you or take you out of that again. It's almost like you have this auditory cue to remind you about, I don't know, like just to kind of call to mind and reiterate those feelings and say, you know, you've been here before, like get yourself out of it. There's something that's inherently compelling about that to me.
The interesting part of it is, of all that is that, you know, when I'm done with an album, I sort of decompress and I disconnect. I disconnect from it. I disconnect from the meanings of it, you know, from those kind of things. And it's almost like, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the ego death, you know, and the hero's journey.
Ego death, gosh, I swear like I've seen that reference before.
It's actually a really good Atrium Carceri song.
Oh yes,
it's
okay,
the last song.
Yes, okay,
really
right. I was like, why the hell does that sound so familiar? Sorry, yes.
That's all right. That's sort of what it is. At the end of every album, I'm noticing is that, you know, it's sort of like the protagonist, you know, sort of comes to terms with certain things about himself. And it's like, okay, you know, I was this person before, you know, and I was feeling these things before, but maybe I don't need to focus on them anymore. Maybe I can finally, you know, give these feelings, give these events a proper burial, you know, and sort of move on to grow. And that's sort of what happens at the end of every album, I guess, with the, you know, protagonist. That's what I'm noticing. And, you know, I live through the protagonist, put it that way. Okay. You know what I mean? When I'm writing the music, I live through that. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know, it's not particularly about me per se. You know what I mean? Although it is. It mirrors me, and, you know, but it's not in a way. But so that's sort of what's happening. And, you know, it's almost like in the Miss Between Mirrors, it's like, you know, you're back in the same spot again. that you were, and it's like the protagonist is there again, even though he, kind of put some things to bed and
Yes.
was able to move on. There's a lot more down there that wasn't put to bed, and it's coming out, and you got to put
Right.
this to bed too and deal with it, and that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a fair characterization or if this is even really the gist or the thrust of what is occurring with some of these albums, but do you ever feel like with producing these records and listening back to them and such, do you think that there's ever a point at which you're going to like reach a pinnacle of some sort with burying all these emotions you suppress, or do you think that this project God Body Disconnect is kind of an it's almost like corporeally, like we're all going to die at some point, right? There's no you can't get around that. But for you, is there something about this project where I guess in a sense you would never know if you reach that pinnacle, or even setting
No.
that goal for yourself is kind of foolish in a way, right? But do you think that there's always something that you can be dredging up or wrangling with or trying to dig into with this project? Like there's really like it's bottomless, like what you can explore with this project in a way, if that's a fair way to
Yeah,
put it.
no, it is. The inner self is bottomless. It really is. It's unknown, and it's, and like I said, I go wrong when I try to dig. You know what I mean? That's when I fuck up. When I try, and that's what I did. At the end of Dredge Pro, it's like, let me try to fucking dig and like try to figure shit out. And
Yeah.
and it's like, no, you can't do that, man. You start, looking for shit, man, you're gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna
Right.
come to you. Just
Yes.
stop and just live. That's kind of what I do. I just live. And I just write and live. So the whole time when I'm writing an album, besides me being a fucking insane perfectionist, what I mean?
Yes.
It's like this is what I'm, a fucking perfectionist. Every fucking sound pitch has to be. I move shit like, it has to be 1 decibel up or 1 decibel down. And I'll fucking wrangle with that shit
Really?
for a week. You know what I mean? It's like, dude,
Yeah.
1 decibel, come on. But I do that. So besides all that, I'm having fun, and I'm not really thinking about digging or like, is this going to relate to me, or is this going to relate to the story? How's this going to work? The vocals usually come at the end.
Yes.
That's kind of what it does. The vocals come at the end. And so, and the other interesting thing I'll say is that at least on, all my solo albums, I end up writing the fucking last song first. I have no fucking idea why, and I've tried to understand that,
Yeah.
looking back hindsight wise, and it's almost like every album is a journey, for the protagonist, and I guess for me in some sense, and it's like I see the end, the last song is the end there. It's like that's where you need to go to, and the protagonist has to get through all these fucking the windy journey in order to reach that end.
Right.
You know what I mean? I guess
Right.
that's probably what it is. It's not really something on the surface I'm dealing, working with, but that's might be what it is.
Okay. And is it the case when that happens? Do you know almost immediately when you compose the track? You're like, oh, this is the last track. You just know, or there's like a gut feeling. You're
No.
like, this is okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's usually a fucking puzzle. You know what I mean? It's like I
Right.
gotta say, and I write so much shit, that I just let go because it's like I don't, sometimes it doesn't fit to me, or it's like I'm almost, look back, when you were 18. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, you weren't the same person you are now.
No.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
It's like you kind of look back and say, what the fuck was I saying back then?
Right.
And it's like, really, shit, that was me? And it's like, and the same thing will be for you now 10 years from now.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's, I don't know. I can't, sort of like look back on, when I look back, everything's is through a different lens. You know what I mean? Something different, to me. I don't know where I went with that.
No, you're good. No, that's all good. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of doing these open form conversations. It's not really meant to be, all these precise answers to things. It's supposed to be just kind of all off the cuff. That's why I like doing this so much, because I feel like you learn a lot more about somebody and their work doing this, as opposed to, as we said in the beginning, doing text style interviews where you can calculate your answers. Yes. Yeah. So going a bit into the mist between mirrors, I wanted to know, or I wanted to learn a bit more about the trip you took out to Iceland to record a lot of the field recordings that are present on the album. And really, I mean, I was able to glean that from the posts you made on social media and such, but what was the, like, going to Iceland? Have you been there before? Like, what was the
No.
Okay.
Never been to Iceland at all. You know what I mean? I don't know. I have this, like, I'm fascinated with, like, Scandinavia and like Iceland and all these kind of places. You know what I mean? It's like all I see. Listen, I grew up with a fucking concrete backyard. You know what I mean? It literally was concrete. I had no grass in my backyard. When I was a young kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like you don't get to see these places. This shit fascinates me. You know what I mean? And so I took a trip to Iceland. With my wife. It was, I don't know. I think it was it was an anniversary. She'll kill me. If I don't remember. But,
it's all good.
It was an important anniversary we took.
Sure.
My memory is not all there these days.
Oh, it's all good.
And we went down there, and I always bring my recording gear with me. And I was like thinking, like, I'm gonna get some wind, I'm gonna get some this and that. And it was like, I was going around, and basically the whole album, The Mist Between Mirrors, is like, it's like 98% like just straight up Iceland. You know what I mean? Like even in the beginning, and Grief for the Living, the first track, like it sounds like a little restaurant, right?
Yes.
Plates and clinging. That was a rest stop in fucking Iceland, because we were like on a tour bus, and like they stopped, and everybody was in, went to the restaurant, and my wife went back inside the bus, and a lot of people went in the bus, and I'm sitting there like, you know what? Let me just fucking bring out these mics. I was like, no one's gonna fucking know,
Right.
And I just sit there and I just fucking record. I got these stealthy mics I like to use, and I just sat there by myself and just recorded. I kind of get lost in it. You know what I mean? I get lost. I had the feeling to want to do it. I didn't have any specific, use for that. When I did it, it was just like, this is something cool here to be alone, and record. I like to do that a lot. I record a lot of airports. You hear that there's also an airport on the album.
Oh, there is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which part could you recall the exact? I'm always curious what the hell some of the parts are, because Connor and I tried to say, what the fuck is an instrument and what the hell is a field recording? And we're always trying to figure out what is what, and sometimes we get it right, but we probably have like a 5 to 95% hit rate. It's really bad.
No, you got a lot of. Well, obviously you got the restaurant right.
Yeah, that one was pretty obvious to me, and I found that to be a pretty nice characteristic. It certainly added just this, because it's just one of those things. I think I even made that remark where it's a sound you hear so much no matter where you go in the world, right? And like, even though that occurred in Iceland, it's like I could totally imagine that happening at a diner I could go to, or a rest stop down, several miles from my house. And even though the language would be different, it still kind of embodies the same feeling in a way, or it still has that aura about it where I don't know, not nostalgia, but it just calls to mind certain memories I have of similar instances, even though geographically they're worlds apart.
Yeah, no, I think that's you ever go to a diner by yourself, restaurant, eat by yourself?
No.
And sit there?
Yeah.
I have once in a while, listen, I'm married, I have kids, I have friends I can go, but sometimes I just like to go by myself,
Sure.
There's something about just sitting there, by yourself and enjoying your own company, what I mean? And, that's sort of what I felt at that point, and I guess I was feeling a little down that day. I don't know why, just,
right.
I guess I was, and I, just sat by myself and just listened to everybody talk and the world, clanking around me. And, that was that. And, the airport is where our ghosts disappear. That's an airport. I like to, and I don't like to just, what I like to do is usually I like to sort of move around while I'm recording sounds. I don't like to be stationary. I have like stealthy mics. I have like these little mics that, no one can see that I like to just kind of walk through the crowd by myself, and just feel the people going by you, you know what I mean? And
Right.
it's just an interesting, feeling to me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, but it's this album, I used a hell of a lot of fucking reverb, more than I usually do. I'm a reverb addict, but
Sure.
I use a lot of reverb because I wanted to sort of give the feeling of being caught in a fog or a mist, you know what I mean? Where you can hear the people, but you're not really connected to them.
Yes.
And, that's the feeling that, I guess I get, and, I guess I'll get down, I'll get depressed, or, I'll start to feel kind of detached from the world around me, like I'm in my own little place. And, I guess that kind of harkens back to that feeling, these field recordings.
And when you go glean all these, so you go in and grab so many of them, but so when you went out to Iceland though, you didn't really did you go with you didn't necessarily go with the intent of saying, okay, I'm gonna go here and get all these recordings for my next album per se, or is that not true?
Well, work on something. I don't know
Okay.
if my next album, but work
Okay.
on, work on something. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't know. Once I put myself in a box, like you're working on this album, that's it. It's like I sort of get stuck there and I can't do anything else. And it's like, man, I'm just stuck on that album and I fucking live that album for fucking 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Kind of thing. And it's like I hate the box myself. It's like, let's just go out and have fun and field record it. I mean, I love field recording. That's if I could do that all fucking day long, that's all I would do. Just be in the fucking woods or, but sitting by some fucking glacier or something and recording.
Yeah.
I love the process. I love to be there and just feel it coming in. You hear it differently with a mic. Everything's up close. You know what I mean? You sort of feel like you're in your own head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't feel like you're part of the outside world anymore. It kind of brings me back inside, and it's just, I just love it,
What would you say is is there a favorite field record? I mean, it sounds like with your passion for field recordings, there's so many that you do love, but were there any ones in particular from Iceland that you really loved more so than, say, others? Or were there some that you were very surprised to have stumbled upon while going and collecting as many as you did?
I did, like, we went on top of a glacier. I forget the name of it. It was one of the largest glaciers in Iceland. And,
okay.
I think I posted a picture on Facebook. I believe so. Like, it's just this fucking like barren white landscape. I'm just in the middle of it with my fucking parka on. You know what I mean? I'm fucking trying to record. And it's like I was just there by, just like that. And I told my wife, take the picture quick. Just take a picture of me. So I just have it from memory, so I know how to. That's what I like to do, to like to have pictures so I can, kind of get the context of each recording, you know what I mean? So I can look back on it and say, okay, that's where I was. And I tell her, get out of here, come on, just go, and, kind of thing. And I just went on my own and I walked, far away from, her and everybody. And I just sort of do that. I guess, that was a good one. The last track, with the singing.
Yeah.
That's Icelandic singing. That came about, I stumbled upon that one. We were in a glacier. In some kind of cave, ice cave. It was like underground, and we were on this tour, and I always like to break away from the group. I don't know. I just, I wish I could go by myself, but they're not gonna let you go by yourself. You know what I mean? You're gonna fall down and kill yourself. They're gonna fight.
Right.
Find me back in a box or something. But so you gotta kind of go with the tours. You know what I mean? So, but I try to break away. So like everybody goes away while down fucking the tunnel deeper. I'll put on my fucking mics and I'll just start walking by myself, and you hear some of those footsteps. That's on Grief for a Living, like those, like right at the end of the track, it sounds like sweeping footsteps. That's in the middle of an ice cave, but the one I really stumbled upon was that has really good acoustics, the fucking cave. It's just, the sound was amazing. And the tour guide, he's Icelandic, and he says, hey, it's got really good acoustics, and I'll sing for you. I'm going to sing you an Icelandic lullaby, famous Icelandic lullaby. I said, really? I said, fuck. I said, let me get my fucking shit out. I'm going to record this fucking guy. You know what I mean? I was like, so I get the fucking mics out, and I sit there and I'm recording him, you know what I mean? And he's singing. I was like, that was it. obviously I took it back home, edited it, I pitched them differently, but that's a guy. That's not a girl.
Oops,
A lot of
is.
people think it's a girl. It's a guy.
Yep, Connor and I fucked that one up. Let's.
No, not just you. A lot of people do because it's I mean, he has a beautiful voice, but I mean,
Yes.
it's like it's so different than like Western music, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
tones that he's using, and like I guess the notes he's hitting, and it's like I don't know, it was wonderful, and like it just I don't know, I didn't plan on that one whatsoever. I just hit.
Interesting. I would have
figured I'd
never.
use it.
Yeah, I would have never surmised that whatsoever. And is there any insight you can offer into what the lullaby is about? Is it pretty straightforward, or is there like?
I know. I mean, he gave us a couple. He told us, what it was. It's pretty fucking dark. It was about like, being in the crevices in the cave, and like, like the winds and the voices in the cave. And it was like, damn, you sing this shit to children. God.
Right.
It was like, damn, it's like, this is sick. I like that kind of shit.
Right.
This is dark. I'm into this.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably a good part of it, where it's like not all dark and, but yeah, it was a very dark lullaby, from what he was, because I asked him what it was about, and, it's just. That's why I found it fitting to name that track, another lullaby, from the abyss at the end. I was like, he's saying a lullaby, and that's what it kind of is. It's kind of the ending of the road for the protagonist at this time. He's reached the end of his journey here, and, he's sort of going to go through the ego death. He's going to kind of let everything, his past self go and form into something new. It's like every album, if you notice, I have a gunshot.
Yes.
Or some kind of loud bang. And I do that in every album, and I use a lot of the same sounds. I do that on purpose because, I'm a nostalgic motherfucker. I just love fucking nostalgia. I love fucking 80s, and my fucking studio is like fucking from 1985 to 1994. Like, it's just straight up like, that's what it is. You know what I mean? I got a whole bunch of old movie posters and everything. I'm like a kid in my head still, And so that's why I'm nostalgic to use those old sounds, because they have like, they're connected to me somehow, and it's like, so I use them a lot. But the reason for the gunshot, I believe, this is just me looking back on it now, is probably it's to kind of mark that this is a new self, this journey now. What he was before on the previous album, he's no longer that person anymore. It's the same guy, the same, I guess, literal person, but he's different. He's grown, and he's had to let some things go. He's took on some new things. And it's like he's still in the same place. He's still in this world, and he's going to be here until everything's figured out in the end, and that may take forever. Right. I don't know how long that's going to be, but that's sort of, what it is. And that's why when I do the gunshot, it's like bang. It's like new self, new journey. That's it.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
There's usually some kind of, at the end of every album, some kind of like reconciliation, I guess. Whether it's a positive or a negative. I don't think they're really negative, but, it's just there's something there, to think about. And, I did have a lot of vocals, for this album recorded. I did. And for some reason, I just felt like it would be better not, certain to say these things. It doesn't need to be said. The music, I thought, to me, it made me feel so much when I was writing it and listening back to it. It's like that I don't need to say it. I think it can be expressed through the music. I didn't need to say this at the end, and that's why I didn't do that. I didn't include that many vocals.
And how did that feel for you? Was it something that did you have to kick that idea around for a little while to come to that decision, or were you just pretty naturally feeling like, oh, I don't really need to include all these vocals? Because I think I've seen people make this observation. That was one that I noted too, that this album of yours, Mist Between Mirrors, it only has the one monologue in the first track, and that's all you really hear, save the voice from the Icelandic individual who sings the lullaby. But I found that to be particularly interesting, not in that I got the impression you're going to be doing less of it in future albums, but how you kind of let it take a bit of more quote-unquote back seat and let the music kind of pour and wash over you more so than, being pulled along or strung through the album with these monologues every so many tracks.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll do for the future. I can't say, because like I said, I don't have a I don't have a set thing. When I sit down to write, and when I do, it doesn't turn out well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it just doesn't. It's like it's a box, and I find myself trying to claw my way out of the box and break down the walls all the time and write a million different things. So it's better just to sit down and put the headphones and play. And if I feel like I said, if I'm in the car and I'm listening to one of my bounce tracks, or I just have a memory of thinking what I did the night before, and I feel like there could be some kind of vocal there, and that's when I'll sit down that night, and I'll get, in the meditative state, and then I'll just sit there and, see if something, what happens,
Right.
And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I just felt like this time around, I didn't need to do it. It just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt, it didn't feel like it needed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I certainly, I mean, for me, not that I'm the most well versed. I can't say I'm like the biggest. I know your music like the back of my hand, but I certainly like resound that sentiment to that degree. I mean, I think that the music certainly speaks volumes relative, and that's not to say, it could have been better with the monologues whatsoever. It was a nice change of pace, I thought. And it seemed like you were expanding a bit more with at least some of those kind of abstract post-rock influences, or at least that seemed to come more to the forefront in this album, but maybe I need to go do more listening of the previous ones.
There's, it's interesting because, like I said, after every album is finished, I decompress and I disconnect.
Right.
I literally, I don't understand it, but I literally forget, how to play the things I played on the previous albums. I do.
Huh.
It's like, and I forget how I even produced them, because like I'm so fucking, anal about everything and how I do it. And I'll add, this little bit of reverb here and then double stack this and here. And it's like, I do things in a specific way,
Yes.
and it's like, I kind of forget because it's like, my God, I'm done with the album. It's finished. And as the character sort of, the protagonist moves on, and is done with that previous life, I am too,
Yeah.
in a way. And it's like, I forgot, how to do all that kind of shit. So when I get to do a new album, it's always a new learning experience. That's why I say it's been a difficult 2 years, it's been difficult, 2 years just in general in life,
Right.
but it's also been difficult relearning how to do things and making new things. I usually like to buy a lot of new gear after I'm done with an album. I always go, oh God, let me fucking buy this. My sound will be so much fucking better. It's this, it's that.
Right.
I always do that shit, and it's like, it takes me so long how to learn new things. And I usually, at the end of the day, I'll learn all this new shit. And it's like, you know what? I like that old reverb I used to use.
Yeah.
Fucking, dredge portal. I was like, fuck, let me go back to that. And then I have to take time to relearn how to use it again. It's like, I don't know what it is. Like my fucking memory's going or what. I don't know. I can't fucking explain it, but it's like, I literally forget because I've disconnected from it.
Yeah.
So every album is a brand new journey to me, even though it's the same world. It's a brand new journey as a story, a brand new journey as fucking technically writing the album and, musically. So, I guess the post-rock influence, I love that shit. Like it's like this, like I'm on, like right now I'm in the fucking Adirondacks in upstate New York. It was like a fucking 4-hour drive to get here. And, I can tell you my playlist I'm listening to. I Have a Nice Life. I'm a huge Have a Nice Life fan. Fucking Jesu. I don't know if it's Jesu.
Oh, yeah.
Jesu.
Jesu.
That
I've heard some
shit.
people, I've heard it said so many ways. I can't pin it down, but yeah.
Like that. I'm a big Alan Holdsworth fan. It's a he's jazz, but he's like jazz fusion. So like I'm just I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of like sometimes like that emotional music. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
some of those chords, and I like to use bass a lot. And like I like bass chords. And it's like it just adds like feeling to it. I don't know for me.
Sure.
It's like it's. Yes, I'm a big fan of post-rock and fucking shoegaze and shit like that. I had, a couple projects like that before. Like I said, with Tom from Gloomseeker, we were doing that shit, and it's just, never saw the light of day, but, that's what we were writing. So I have a lot of that influence,
Right.
sort of. None of my influence is dark ambient,
Right.
That's the thing.
Which is fascinating,
Now, now I listen to things and I'm like, wow, this is sick and that's sick, especially like everybody on Cryo Chamber. It's like, dude, it's amazing. Like I don't even know how I'm fucking standing there sometimes.
Sure. Sure.
It's like I'm like, these guys are so much fucking better than me. It's like, this is
Sure.
crazy, and but obviously that shit influences me too, but not in a direct way.
Right. I mean, I've heard some people's talk pretty high. I mean, I think even Duncan noted at some point, he said you're extremely good with, manipulating and making field recordings sound really rich. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. I don't, sometimes I've been coming around to appreciating the use of field recordings so much more, even in albums. Like yesterday, I just did a review of this punk album from Australia, this podcast review, and they even have like some didgeridoos and some other stuff mixed into one of their tracks,
cool.
and they have some field recordings with critters, like there's just so much texture that I find that field recordings add to music. And even though it's worlds apart from the actual instruments playing, it's like there's something so much richer about, adding that little flair. It adds this personality that sometimes I think albums that I listen to just kind of lack, because it does, it just gives it that extra layer of depth you don't necessarily hear. It just feels like it's a living, breathing place, as you said. Like it gives it like a life, and it's a breathing organism.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did, he's very good at field recordings too. I mean,
yes. Yes.
I was surprised he's listening to my shit and being as good. I'm like, really? I'm like, are you serious? Come on, man. Like, it's like, really, it's like, that's what I'm saying. I listen to basically everybody on Crowd.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like superstar, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, damn, it's like, I don't know, listen, I'm just grateful to be, part of that. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm just happy if I like it and like one of my friends like it. Right. It's like, all right, it wasn't a total fucking bust, I mean, all by yourself. And I'm just so grateful that, I have, fans and whatever friends I've gained and other musicians that, I can converse with. And I'm just grateful for it. You know what I mean?
Before I go any further too, how I want to make sure I'm not taking up too much of your time. I know we've been talking for like 2 hours.
No, you're cool. I'm on vacation, pal.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm outside.
Okay.
I'm good.
Oh, no, you're good. I just, sometimes I know. Okay, no, that's fine. I just, if you're, you're with family, what have you, I don't want to encroach upon that with, just talking to you endlessly, because I have several more questions, but I didn't want to,
Nah, go ahead. Shoot
Okay.
away.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. Sometimes some people are like, "Oh yeah, man, I have to get going." It's like, "Oh shit, sorry, I should have asked how much time."
Nah, don't worry about it. I know I don't get this kind of form. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like for me, it's for me to even talk like this. I don't talk like this in my regular life. I can't. You know what I'm saying? I can't talk about feelings and shit like that and my music and all that. It's like everybody look at me like I have like 3 heads. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
sure.
You sensitive? Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
That kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, no, not the environment I'm in.
Yeah. No, I sincerely appreciate that. There was another bit. I think I believe you left a comment on, or you made a remark regarding the Miss Between Mirrors that I wanted to dig a bit into as well. And one of the components that I found interesting, when I believe it was something to the effect of, you said the word abyss and how it always represented a dark place, but in, as you've aged or as you've grown or as the project has moved ahead, your perception of it has shifted in that you found it to be a place of redemption. And I found that to be an interesting insight, and I was just curious about expounding upon that a bit more and what kind of led you to that realization, or what reflection you went through to come to that understanding.
It depends your perspective on it. The abyss can be like Heart of the Mirror's Abyss, on Dredge Portals. That song in the beginning, it's like you hear, I'm breathing heavy.
Yes.
I think there's actually yelling. Actually, that was a real panic attack at that point.
Oh wow.
And I was listening to music, and I was, in my set trying to do vocals, like I normally do, and something just came on. And so that's what that was. And at that point, that's what the abyss usually means, I mean,
yes.
The abyss is it's a dark, scary place.
Yes.
Just think of the word. And it can still mean that for me, as well. But it depends on the way you look at it. It also can mean a place of redemption. It's like, this is the last point. This is the deepest, point inside yourself now. And how are you going to do this? Are you going to fold up and just die here?
Yeah.
Is that the end of you? Or are you going to look at this and say, you know what, I'm going to change,
Yes.
I'm going to change myself. And, this is the point where I can do it. It's at the point of life or death, the abyss. It's like, you go any further, that's it. I don't know if there is anything further, but, you stay here, you will die in the abyss, or you're going to use the abyss and use that death, that ego death of that previous self of yours, and make something new out of it and have another journey,
Right.
and move on with your life. And that's sort of what, that realization came to me.
And was that through any specific, like, was it through a recording process that you learned that, or was it through some sort of reflection, or through that track specifically where you kind of had that light bulb go off, or you're like, oh, this actually, you can see it as not a scary place?
I learned it that morning that I did the post. That's
okay.
I was in the car. I often listen to my music. I do, because like I said, I'm disconnected from it in a way. So it's like it sounds new to me every time. It sounds fresh. It's like, damn, how did I fucking do that? How did I do
right.
this? It's like I try to listen back, and I do that. And also if I'm feeling a little down, it can give me a little hope sometimes, because I'll listen back and say, look, look what you made. You made this was good, and, you have something to be happy about. And obviously the emotions that are there, that come with it, I'm listening to the music, I still get that same emotional effect. And, I'll need that, sometimes. But that morning, that's when I figured it out. It's like, I'm listening to the track, and like this thing just popped in my head, and I was like, wow. That's interesting. I never thought of that. And that's when I'll do a post. Like I said, I'm not sitting there thinking of things to do, or,
right.
I'm not trying to put on any type of persona. That's the thing that I've told Simon this too. I always tell him that when I first started the project, and it's like, I'm not here to put on this show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is I'm trying to be as real as I can be, and whatever I say in that moment, in that time, if I do a post or my music, whatever I've done, that was real at that moment.
Right.
I really felt it. That was 100%. Like, I'm not, I'm not doing anything to put on some kind of show here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
yes.
So that's what that was.
No, and
when I figure it out, you'll figure it out.
Right. And it's yeah, it's just refreshing to hear, because, there's so much stuff, at least within the digital age that we currently reside in. There's so many, those quote unquote, like a blue check mark on Twitter, like some sort of like influencer where they're always posting this stuff, and it's like, man, how long were you just sitting there just like typing and retyping the sentence to make it sound insightful? Like, I just read so much shit where it just feels so contrived and forced. And
it's like, what's the point, man? You know what I mean? It's like, what are you trying to do? Get more fans? Or are you trying
to get those likes? You're chasing.
Yeah, if that's what you're really after, then you shouldn't. I don't know. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm after. I appreciate it. I love it. I mean, I do. I love it. But at the same time, it's hard for me to converse online.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't do many posts. It's hard for me. It takes, even though I figured something out, it takes me time the courage to actually sit there and type it and write it. You know what I mean? It's like, but because I don't know. It's difficult for me. I'm usually quiet. You know what I mean? And this side of my, self.
Right. Well, it's I just found that one bit, at least, on the perspective of what the void represents, to be particularly fascinating. And I don't know, there may be some other components. I'm looking through the notes I took down. I don't have too much else on the Mist Between Mirrors, at least at the moment. One thing I am curious about, though, that I think would touch, or it does touch, on the project a bit more generally. When you go in and sit down and you have to, you're getting in the zone, or you're getting in the mood, or you're starting to work on your next album. And I know you don't necessarily go into it with, as you said, with the emotions. You're not like, okay, I'm going to make a sad track, and I'm going to make, this bombastic crescendo track, what have you. But, like, how do you go about piecing sounds together to really start formulating a foundation to work with in a track? Like, what is that process like for you? Just starting to create soundscapes, and then knowing when you did touch on when it makes you feel something, you're onto something. But how is it really just a lot of exploration and tinkering around with a bunch of sounds endlessly until something strikes your ear, or how do you usually go about that?
I'm like I said, I'm nostalgic, so I
Sure.
like to use a lot of the same instruments, a lot of the
Okay.
same sounds, and so I'll go back to some of my favorites, whatever like that, and I'll, just sit there and do whatever in front of the keyboard and in front of the piano, and I'll just start, playing around and just
Okay.
making things, and then it's a layer after layer after layer comes, that's really what I do. I'm a multi-layer. Like each one of my tracks is fucking like chokes my fucking computer. You know what I
Really?
mean? Like yeah, it
Yeah.
just fucking chokes it, man. It's like every fucking track is like every song is like literally close to 100, 150
Holy shit.
individual tracks.
Is that
It's
a
like
pain in the ass to mix and all that too, or?
well, you see, I kind of do it all at once. You know what I mean?
Mm.
That's sort of how I do. I mix while I'm playing. So like it's probably the
Okay.
wrong thing to do. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I should probably like write the track and then like have a mixing, session. Say now we're just going to mix the sounds and we're going to add the reverb and we're going
Right.
to, up and down. And that's like I'm doing it all at once. So that's why it fucking
Okay.
takes me so long. So it's like I don't know. It's the wrong thing to do, most likely, but it's the only way I know how.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but that's sort of what it is. Maybe I'll start with a field recording first. Sometimes,
Hmm.
and just hear something. And I'll just start to hear things in my head. I'll start to hear a note here, a note there, and I'll play around until I get it. Until I get something that piques my interest, and then
Right.
it's one layer, and then I'll harmonize it. You know what I mean? And then I'll
Yeah.
something else and something else and something else, and I stack on top of stacking things that you can't even tell what the original source sounds like half the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I drench it in fucking reverb, so it just sounds like a fucking wall of like, just I don't know, just enrapturing you.
Yes.
I need to feel like I'm there
Hmm.
100%. I need to feel like I'm just in this world, whatever place it is, and I just need to feel it like I'm just there 100%.
Yeah.
So I fill up the fucking audio spectrum like completely. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So, and it's like it's probably not really the way to produce correctly,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I'm sure some people, there may be some more professional people who'd be like, what the hell is this guy actually doing? Like, why would he do that? But if it works for you, that's all that really matters at the
yeah,
end of the day, right?
that's what it is. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it works for me. That's how I have to. That's how it just has to be. You know what I'm saying? I gotta feel like I'm lost. I gotta get lost in the music, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, dude, it's like 4 a.m.
Right.
It's like what the fuck? It's like damn. That's kind of what happens to me.
Is there like, and not to make it sound in a negative, this isn't meant to be, I guess when you preface a sentence with not to be in a negative way, you're automatically implying it is, because you just sound like you're kind of saying it in a wrong way. But is there, when you're going in and producing an album, is there a like an addictive quality for you or an obsessive component for you with respect to how crafting the songs in the way you do, or just composing the songs and revisiting these planes of existence or this world that you're crafting, these stories within them for this individual, or you're promulgating the story of this person that you're living through, for lack of a better phrase? Is there something about that you just, I mean, it sounds like you do get lost in the production process, but is there something when you're producing an album that you just find addictive about it, or trying to, I don't know, just trying to dig deeper and get some new sounds, or construct these pieces that really evoke this cinematic quality of the world, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, it needs to be living. It needs to
Hmm.
feel like it's living and breathing, and I also needs to feel like it's half dream and half real to
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
That's sort of where I am. It's not a complete dream world, because it's still, it's still a protagonist, still a man. There's still life in him. He still had a
Hmm.
previous life on the outside.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, I'm looking back on it. It's, a lot of it could be, interpreted as memories, of himself.
Hmm.
And it's like, so it has to have that real life component to it, but it has to feel like it's a dream, like they're interconnected together. And that's kind of a hard thing to do sometimes, you know what I
Sure.
mean? To make that, that kind of world there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's the thing that I'm after. That where I get obsessed about it. You know what I mean? Where it's like
sure.
that has to feel that way. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
If it's too real, it's like, oh, it's too real. Add more fucking reverb. That's what I'll
Right.
do. I'll make it fucking dreamier. You know what I mean? Oh no, now it's too much reverb. No, now it feels too dreamy. It's not, and I'll fucking go back and forth until I find the right fucking spot. It's a sweet
Right.
spot for me, and that's the obsessive quality
Interesting.
part of it.
Okay, yeah. I had a question. Gosh, I wish I that's sometimes one of the issues is like what while we're talking you're saying you say certain phrases and I latch onto them and I'm like, "Oh, there's an interesting insight and I want to delve deeper," and then I think about it a little too hard and then it just flitters off into the abyss. Not to be punny or anything, it just flitters away from my skull. Like,
That
God
happens
damn
to me
it.
while I'm talking shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like I forget the half what I'm talking about. I'm moving to something else. It's like I'm
right.
just running. It moves in miles a minute, and I'm just it's whatever's coming out. It's coming out.
Right, right. It's God, I'm trying to recall. It was something related to dreams specifically. I guess that's okay, that's what it was. So when you're also working on an album, do you ever feel, I mean, you have your own life outside of the music you produce, but do you ever feel as if when you're producing these albums that you become more and more disconnected from your own reality? Does that happen at all? Or is that something
Um,
that arises? Or do you get that feeling like you're kind of getting so ensconced in this that you're just drifting away in a sense, maybe mentally, or I don't know if that's a fair way to
yeah,
put it, but
no, it does. That's. I mean, that's it's an effect of it. You know what I mean?
sure.
I'm so entrenched in creating this world. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And and then I'll have to latch on to a protagonist sometimes. To explore that world. You know what I mean? It's a
Right.
safe way to do it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't want to fucking be facing my own demons. Knowingly facing them up front and writing music about it. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
hard for me to do that. I can't. So yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. I'll start to do that. I'll start to disconnect. But I've been struggling with that since I'm a young kid. I remember since
Hmm.
I'm 4 or 5 years old already. I would detach from sort of my surroundings,
Hmm.
and sort of go up into this little daydream world, and I guess it was safer there, for me. I guess it was fun there, and I didn't need to deal with whatever was going on at the time, and that's sort of what I did. And I don't know, I'm doing that with my music too, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
guess. And yeah, it just happens. I'll disconnect, even while writing the album,
Sure.
I feel what's going on, you know what I mean? Even though I don't know it on the surface, you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
feel things while I'm writing. I'm feeling the protagonist. I'm feeling what's going on. And that's how I can make it sound as real to me as possible. I have to be there. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that means delving in and accepting whatever fucking comes out of it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's an unfortunate thing that happens. Sometimes I'll get heavily depressed, while writing.
Sure.
Things will happen, and it is what it is. I don't know if it's an effect of the music,
Hmm.
if it happens anyway on its own. I can't really put my finger on it,
Okay.
because I've been dealing with that shit since I'm a kid. You know what I'm saying? So what's making it different from then till now? I mean, is it just because I'm making music now? Like, is
Right.
that what it is, or is it adding to it? I don't know. All I know is that it's extremely satisfying to me to make this music. You
Okay.
know what I mean? I'm having
Yeah.
fun in the end of the day. I'm not on any type of, you know, journey on the surface. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's not like that. So I'm having fun, and that's what it is.
And in any sense, do some of I don't know if this would have any impact during the production process or while you're producing an album, but do you ever when you go to sleep and dream, do you ever feel like you visit the places that you're constructing out of sound? Does that ever or do you ever get that feeling in a sense from some of the
Um,
dreams you have or
yeah, I'll tell you about one specific thing, on Sleeper's Fate,
Mhm.
Lair of the Dormant Host. Okay,
Yeah.
that track. That's probably one of the darkest tracks on the album.
Mhm.
Um, that track, I actually was influenced by, I went to one of them isolation tanks. I think that's what they're
Oh,
called.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
You sit in the water in the complete darkness, and the guy was like, "You want me to put the music for you?" I was like, "No, fuck it, I don't want no music. I just want to fucking lay there." You know what I mean? Let me just
Right.
see what the fuck happens.
Sure.
And I said, he was like, "You want to do which one? The 45 minute, the hour, or the 2 hours?" I was like, the longest fucking one you got. I was like, "Let's
Really?
see."
And that's the first time
It's
you've ever gone in one?
the first time ever.
I've never
It
been in
was like,
one. I've never even tried, so I have no idea what happens. But
I guess many different things can happen to different people. I've read different things. But for me at least, I sat there for 45 minutes in the pitch black. You know what I mean? And it's like
yeah,
nothing was going on, and I'm sitting there. I was like, "What the fuck's gonna happen here? What's up?" I'm just sitting here. I'm getting antsy. I want to get the fuck out of here. It's
right.
like, I don't know what time it is. I don't know how much. There's no clock. There's nothing. So, a minute feels like fucking an hour. But
Yes.
out of nowhere, I fucking just drifted, and
Hmm.
I I saw this little boy,
Hmm.
and it was me as a child, and it grabbed my hand and he said, "Come on, hurry up, we got to get out of here. We got to go now." And I was like, "Oh, go where? Go where?" And it was just, and he just was running me through these fucking halls, with so many different doors, and
Hmm.
and it just felt like something was chasing me. And that fucking track, Lair to Dormant Host, I sort of, used that as a reference, that experience
Hmm.
there. So it wasn't, not to say it was a scary experience. I mean, there was
Sure.
fear, but it wasn't like a serene experience either. I hear people say, "Oh, I just
Right.
fucking slept for like 3 hours and had a great
Yes.
time. I woke up," and no, it wasn't. I saw some fucking shit. You know what I mean? And
Right.
he brought me to one fucking door, and I'm there in front of the door. And it was this old, like, like wooden, like medieval style door with like this like heavy knocker on it. And I went up to the door, and like I tried to, like, knock on it with the knocker or try to open it somehow, and it wouldn't fucking open.
Hmm.
And the harder I tried, out of nowhere, this fucking this face just popped out, and it like had this fucking growl. It was like just growled at me, and like, "Just get the fuck away. This is not for you to see here now." Kind of
Hmm.
thing. "Get out of here. You're not ready for this." And
Right.
and then I fucking woke up, and that was it.
Huh.
So I used, like,
Interesting.
I based a lot of that on that.
And is there any sense from that track? Is there something subliminal going on there that you have felt compelled to try to go back and revisit that door, or is that just kind of a shard of an experience and that's all it really is? There's not too much more depth beyond that
I don't know.
experience.
It bothers sometimes. It does stick in my head. I figure what really was behind that door.
Yeah.
Was there,
Yeah.
because every door that the kid was showing me, was like it opened up, and it was like an old memory of something, and it wasn't
Mm,
necessarily a bad memory. It was like, it could be a good memory, anything. So it was like, I guess it was a memory behind there. But this is the thing I talked about when I was doing Sleeper's Fates. Like, if I'm starting to dig too much, that's when there's a problem. You know what I
yes.
mean? And I found myself trying to focus on it, what was behind there. Maybe if I would just stayed in that, in that fucking, trance, whatever I'm in that place for a little longer, I would have figured it out. And maybe, I would have figured out what's going on with me. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's, you can't do that. That's not the way life works. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You're not gonna find the secrets of life out over fucking night. And if you did,
Right.
what was the point of living anymore? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, what's there to live for? And I had to drag myself out of that. I had to pull myself out of that hole and say, "Stop doing this shit." You know what I mean? Stop
Hmm.
trying to find, stop trying to search, just do. You know what I mean? Live
Right.
your life normal. And when you do music, make it fun, pal, because that's what you fucking were doing since you're a kid, doing music. You
Right.
know what I mean? Make it
Right.
fun and enjoy it. Stop trying to make a fucking story and trying to attach something to it, and that shit will come after. You know what I mean? When you're
Yeah.
done with the album, you'll figure out what it meant, and maybe you'll find something out about yourself, and maybe you won't. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what I do now.
Okay, interesting. And is it that so? Have you been back to an isolation tank since that experience,
No,
or
no,
no?
I have not.
Okay.
No, I haven't. Not because I'm scared. It's just like I kind of uptook meditating lately. In the
Huh.
past like year and a half, I'd
Sure.
never done that before.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about someone that's like, never did anything with the inner, I mean,
Right.
knowing about the inner self that's there. Like, I never knew none of this shit.
Sure.
I don't read much, so I'm not reading psychology books. But
Right.
I don't know. I just felt like meditating kind of now. I don't know. It kind of calms me down a little bit. you just close your eyes, you just kind of go into this place, and you don't really think anything, any thoughts specifically, just whatever happens, happens. You know what I mean? And I just kind of wake out of it feeling okay. So I didn't really feel the need to go back to the isolation tank anymore. That's what it was. It was like I'm kind of doing that on a short-term thing. I'm not sitting for 2 hours and meditating, but
Right.
I do like 20 minutes a day, here or there, and I don't really need to go back.
Sure. That makes sense. And that's interesting. Is that something that you picked up, at least on the just doing the meditation? Was that, or did that arise as a result of just trying to cope with some of the feelings you have been feeling, or was there some reason that pushed you into giving it a shot despite you not really being privy to that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's I guess it was I battle with these things. I do. I struggle. I battle, and I was looking for something. I was like,
Sure.
getting at my at the end of the rope, and I was like, what are we doing here? Come on, you need something. Try something. And I'm a big Twin Peaks fan.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And, I love David Lynch, and you know what I mean. And it's I started reading more about it. I'm like, oh, he does this shit. I'm like, oh, this is fucking interesting. I started reading the benefits about it and going into it. I was like, what, give it a fucking shot.
Right.
What's it gonna fucking hurt? You know what I mean? It's like, to me, talk to me 10 years ago, I'd never do this shit. What the fuck is this kind of new age shit? What the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? I would never have done this. It's like now it's like, I'm opening up. I'm talking feelings here. It's like, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
It's like, and that's what kind of got me into it,
Interesting.
And then,
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating to hear. I've not given it a shot. I think I tried it once when I was in high school because there was a project where we didn't have to do it, but it was like an extracurricular thing where they actually had like a Buddhist temple of some sort within like 30 minutes of the high school. And we went there, and I think I just like ended up like falling partially asleep when I tried to do it because it was like at 6 a.m, And I was
no, that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I was
That
like,
can definitely happen.
yeah, but it was uncomfortable as shit because everybody sat there cross-legged for like over an hour, and I was like, how the fuck do these people do this shit? But it hasn't left my memory. It's one of those things that it's like, even though I was way too young to really appreciate it as I have aged, I've thought about it like, maybe I could just do some self-taught stuff or go get a book or two from like some and like try to do it in a way and just give it my own shot, just because, I don't know, it seems like it could maybe somehow in part teach you to deal with just the bombardment of all the thoughts you have that run through your mind on a day-to-day basis, or it seems like it could bring some solace to you in a part.
The decompression,
right?
It's sort of what it is. I think that's that's sort of what they they taught me in the class. It was like, you may fall asleep, but don't try to think anything particular. You know what I mean, or try to go on meditation. That's where you're gonna go wrong. It's like, just sit there. And it'll happen what happens. And whatever happens after 20-something minutes happens. Sometimes you'll stay awake the whole time. A lot of times I'll just kind of doze off and fall asleep or sort of go into like this like lucid dream state, like this half and half kind of thing. And I'll do that. And I don't really think of anything particular when I'm out of it. I just kind of, it's almost like it's better than taking a cat nap to me. You know what I'm saying? Like around 3 o'clock you get fucking tired.
Yes.
Like, why is that? Like, around the world, everybody gets fucking tired.
Oh, yeah.
Right in fucking Spain. Let me tell you, they got it right with that shit. With the fucking siestas and all that.
Yes.
Whatever it's called, they do. It's like they just, I don't know, some reason the human body wants to shut down at fucking 3. That's when you get your coffee. And I try to do that if I can, if I have time or I'm like in the place and time, and like it just, instead of waking up and being groggy from the cat nap, which usually happens, and it's like the rest of your day is shit, even though you took the fucking cat nap, like the meditation doesn't give you that tiredness. It almost gives you like a jolt of energy for some reason. And it's like, it wakes me up and I'm like, oh wow, I could fucking go another 8 hours,
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna have to give that a shot. That is something I've seriously thought about, like bringing my little inflatable thing that I bring camping. I'm like, man, I want to just pop that under my desk some days and just sleep for 20 minutes or 30 minutes just so I can feel, coherent. Because by about 3:30, I'm sitting behind my computer. I'm like, I want to be fucking done with this shit, or I just want to go take a header off the building. Like, fuck this. Like, it's so miserable after a while. It's like, I don't know how you fight through it. And then, I'm only 27. It's like, how am I going to do this throughout, up until my retirement age, how am I going to keep doing this shit? Like, I'm already hurting, and people always say, oh, you're too young. Like, you shouldn't be feeling tired. Wait till you get to my age. Everybody always says that. It's like, oh, wait till you get to my age. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. It's like, okay, still doesn't discount the feeling that I'm having, but
Yeah,
all right.
exactly.
It's frustrating, but
Give it a shot.
yeah,
I mean, listen,
maybe I
it
should.
might help. I mean, I'm not gonna hear. I'm not a preacher. I'm not
Of
gonna
course.
preach about it, but it might work for you. Maybe not. I don't do it I try to do it every day. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But sometimes it just doesn't help. I mean, not help, but sometimes I don't have the fucking time. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't just sit there and do that. But when I do, I know I feel better.
Right.
That's what I know.
Right.
So
That's interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, I'll have to ponder that. I think so I have a couple other questions that are lingering, and one that I wanted to delve into a bit more. Well, I have a couple. There was one I wanted to ask about. I'm trying to think of the order that makes sense. I guess we've been talking a good bit about the LPs, so I'll stay in that realm for just another moment. But I wanted to talk about that one track of yours on Sleeper's Fate, the Drowning with God, a bit, because I found your remarks about that one. I believe you said something to the effect of, one of the most personal tracks you ever recorded, and how long it took for you to understand its meaning. And I wanted to just try to get into that a titch more and kind of get your insights as to, what made it as personal as it is, and what the meaning to you is now, or like what the understanding was several months or years or after time has passed in understanding it.
I guess drowning with God, and I don't think I mean, a religious God or
Yeah,
a
yeah.
God in that sense.
Sure.
I think I was probably referring to. I mean, now looking back at it, I was referring to, the God itself. There's a voice inside of all of us. You know what I mean? That little
Right.
voice that tells you things like
Yes.
that's God to you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It is. It's like, what's the difference? If it's if a God in the sky or a God, inside of you, something's telling you. And sometimes you almost kind of mix it up between. It's like, is that God talking to me?
Yeah.
Is it? Or is it
Yeah.
like, is that just me? Or like, I don't know. Is God real? I mean, it's like, but I think it's the God of, the inner self,
Okay.
and it's drowning with it because I had to kill that side of myself off, sort of, because this side of myself was a negative side, it was a negative voice. I had to kind of kill that off, so I'm drowning with it, and I'll create something new out of it. A new a new me will come, and the only way you're going to get a new me and grow is if you're able to confront some of the things that you've haven't been able to do, confront those demons. And sometimes you got to walk right up to the fucking plank, and you got to just walk right off of it and say, this, I have to do this. That's it. And I'm going to kill this side of me. I'm going to get rid of this negative fucking thought, this negative voice that's been bothering me for fucking how many years, or bothering me the past month or whatever it may be. And that's sort of what I meant by that. And plus it was personal because, the name God Body Disconnect.
Yes.
And I don't know if I've probably talked about it in an interview before, how I came up with the name.
I'd like to hear it, because I was going to ask about that, but I actually blanked on it. But even when you started talking a bit about God as you described it in this track, and then when you say God Body Disconnect, if that's what if that meaning continues through, that sounds like it makes complete and total sense, at least that disconnect between like your inner self and your corporeal form. But I don't know if that's actually what it's getting at, so I don't want to be presumptuous.
I think it is.
Okay.
No, I think it is. I think it is. Now that I can look back on hindsight things, I think that's sort of what it could mean, or means. When I I don't know if you want me to go up to when I came up with the name.
Oh sure. Oh
but,
yeah, I'm always happy to. I love learning as much as I can. So if you feel inclined, please.
It's an interesting, it's a personal story, but the way I came up with it, I guess I was in the warehouse, and I'm sitting there by myself, and I don't know where I just get this fucking panic attack. It just fucking comes out of me, and I I closed my eyes because, I just wanted to stop,
Yeah.
and whatever negative things I'm saying to myself at the time, I just wanted to fucking go away. And I closed my eyes and I just saw this black empty space, sort of like space in the sky. And I saw this like being, almost like a god, and it was like just on the right. And it had this like sort of cord, almost like an umbilical cord. And I was connected to it, and I was just floating in the sky. And it turned to me and it looked at me and it gave me this like look of like, I don't know if it was disappointment or anger. Just it wasn't a good look. It didn't make me feel good. And he sort of like cut the cord and disconnected me from it. And I just floated away, and I wanted to be so part of it. I wanted to be back. Like, why are you cutting me? And I just saw this vision in my head, and the words came just like God, body, disconnect. And it was like, and for a while, I was like, it's a fucking evocative name. I mean, I see something when I, say it, but I was fucking scared to use it. Like, I was frightened after that. And I pondered on it for such a long time. And like in the beginning, like my very first thing when I was thinking of like my name, I called it Reflecting Identities. And that's a dripping track.
Okay.
And and I was like, okay, this is what kind of I could use. And I was like, that doesn't really fit me so well, and it's like, I don't know, and I really like this God by disconnect name, but I'm fucking scared to use it because every time I would fucking mutter the words in my head, my heart would race, because it would bring me back to that moment again.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't know, and I just fucking bit the bullet and went with it. I'm happy I did.
That's fascinating. And is there any undercurrent, or is there a desire? I guess through the conversation, through the dialogue we've been having, it doesn't sound like you may. I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it. Is this something that have you? I mean, it sounds like the word or the name. It has been like you said. It frightened you for a time. Is there any feeling that you're trying to get back to becoming connected again, or do you think that this disconnect is something that is everlasting and what's done is done, and you're the auditory compositions you're producing, are you trying to get back to making this connection again, or is that not the correct way to think about it? That makes sense.
If I'm gonna speak through the protagonist, I guess every album obviously is a journey, and he learns something about himself, and at the end he has to sort of come to terms with something and let something go, and I guess he's trying to connect to himself, connect to a life he once knew. Every album.
Sure.
It's like you constantly harking back to the old memories, the old things, and whatever, and the childhood and things like that. But he has to realize at the end of every journey, it's like, you got to let some of these things go.
Sure.
Even though you want to connect so bad back to them, you have to go, because that part of your life, there was a lot of things that you didn't get to deal with, and now you're dealing with them. You have the courage to deal with it and move on from it, and sort of disconnect from that part. That it's kind of a, I don't know, it's a difficult way to explain it, but it's I guess I'm constantly trying to connect to my old self, and at the same time I realize that you kind of got to disconnect. You can't keep holding on to that. You got to disconnect and move on. I guess that's where, the name kind of goes into play, and guess how the character too.
Sure. No, that's very fascinating. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if that, or it sounds like that would have been in an interview, and maybe I just did a poor job of going and gleaning all the interviews.
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was asked in that particular way. I don't remember much. Like I said, I don't have a fucking memory anymore.
Oh, it's okay. No,
But,
it's all good.
I don't think it was asked in that particular way. I might have said the story, how it was created, the name, but not anything else.
Okay.
This is all new shit you're getting out of me here.
Yes. That's good to hear. Yeah.
So,
I think the other, so the thing is, every time I start getting closer to completing one of these conversations, I always have more questions that arise after the conversation ends. That's always just something that ends up happening. So I'll never be able to ask all the questions I want, but I did want to just glean a bit of insight from you on the Locus Arcadia track you produced, because I found that album to be particularly enveloping. And I was curious what that process was like for you. And I guess we could even touch a bit on Miles to Midnight. That one is, to my mind, a bit different in that you were collaborating in part throughout the whole album, where Locus Arcadia, you wrote your own track and it was part of a collaborative effort. But I wanted to glean some insight regarding both of those albums in part, but I wanted to know more about Locus Arcadia, because that's an album I still think about, because I wrote a review about it way back.
Yeah,
And
I remember it.
Yeah, and I still like pondered. I'm like, man, what the fuck happened in that, and you don't have to reveal the details, but I wanted to know for you, how did that take you out of your comfort zone from a compositional perspective? You're not necessarily working within the confines or working on this world you've been building. I guess in part it could be tangentially related to you personally, but since you went out and worked on a complete, like a science fiction based concept, how was that working on that record, and what you did throughout that process of working with the other artists on the album?
It was amazing just to work with, those guys,
Yeah.
all phenomenal musicians, Randall, Max,
Mm-hmm.
Duncan, just really good, just guys you look to and just like, my God, it's like,
Right.
these guys are so fucking good. So I was just excited just to even that they thought of me. You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
Randall asked me to be, I was like, really? Me? Are you
Right.
sure? Did you get the wrong email? I was like,
Right.
you think me? It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you. And I was like, okay. So, but the thing is that, besides the field recordings, obviously they're different. It's in a space
Mhm.
environment. It's in a spaceship, and I normally don't work with things like that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that is the only thing that took me out of my comfort zone, but, I did enjoy it, but, I look back at that track, was it Facing Arcadia?
Yes, I believe
and
so. Yep.
and I look back on that, and minus the field recordings and the space, environment and whatnot, that song could have been on one of my albums. Because if you leave me to myself, what I've noticed, if I'm on my own and I have to write a track by myself, it's almost always going to, dredge up something inside of me. It's just what
Right.
happens. It's not knowingly. It's just kind of what happens. The story's going to come out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Somehow. And that's what I sort of, did with that, track. I mean, I didn't knowingly do it, but, I look back at that track, could very well have fit in a solo album, minus the space aspect to it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Because there's not much difference compositionally, or emotionally or whatever it is. Note wise, it's me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you can kind of tell it's me. You know what I'm saying? And that was that. So that's what I realized. I can't be left to a track on my own because it's going to come out like that. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Sure.
So Miles to Midnight was very different,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes.
in that, we weren't doing individual tracks on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We were building a world from the ground up.
Yes.
Every fucking note, every layer, we built it on the ground up. And when I was doing Miles to Midnight, I was like, there was freedom for myself,
Mm.
because I don't know why, I didn't feel like I was dredging anything up. You know what I
Oh,
mean? It just felt
okay.
like
Sure.
I'm just having fucking fun and playing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to get to play along, Simon and Parr,
Yes.
also, it was like,
Yes.
goddamn.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
it was the same feeling of Locus Arcadia all over again, with getting to work with, guys that you look up to. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But it was different in the way that we were building something from the ground up. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different of a collaboration.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's a little more, I guess, intimate.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Sure. And is it?
I
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask. Are there, I guess it's a bit of a generic question, but are there plans, or are there, can you offer any insight? Like, since in that album you did with Atrium and it was City's Last Broadcast. That was the one that
Yeah.
parted. Yeah, yeah. Are you for that and Locust Arcadia? Are there going to be any continual fleshing out of those albums, or are those kind of standalone pieces, or is there potential for maybe delving more into the worlds that were crafted in those records?
Um,
Without spoil, I mean, if I don't want you to get in trouble with anybody, if you
no,
say
no,
something you shouldn't say it.
no,
But
no. Listen, I got nothing to hide. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not here to put on a show for
right,
anything. I got nothing to hide. I'm not sure. We haven't really spoken about Locust Arcadia. Coming up. I mean, it very well might be a standalone record.
okay,
You know what I mean? And like I said, I loved doing that album. You know what I mean? And it was a special time in my life. And I look back on it. And any time I work with another musician, they're always going to be connected to me somehow. You know what I mean? It's like they're always going to be special to me. So I consider all those guys special to me because we made something together. But at the same time, I realized that, as far as collaborations go, I'd rather not have to dredge anything up for myself anymore. You know what I mean? And I'd save that stuff for working on my own album. You know what I mean? So as far as collaborations, doing separate tracks, you know what I mean?
yes,
If it would be like that again, I probably, might not want to do a separate track again, on my own like that. Those kind of collaborations. Miles to Midnight. I hope we'll do another one. I talk with Parr and Simon often, and I think we'll probably do another one. You know what I mean? That's. That was a special album. I tell you, that album came together like none other.
yeah,
I've never had anything that smooth come together. We wrote that album, mixed, mastered, artwork, concept, titles, I think in 2 months.
Shit,
It was like
really?
it was
God
yeah,
damn.
it was ridiculous how it came together. It was like just I don't know. It's like you take Parr, Simon, and me, right, and you put us in a boat and you say these three guys, they don't fucking match whatsoever. You know what I mean? On the outside,
yeah,
it's
sure.
like you got this guy. He fucking sounds like he's he just fucking talks on his albums. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's got this post rock fucking sentiment to him, and he's like, he's just out of the realm. And then you got fucking Parr. He's this fucking master, like, I don't know, magician with all these fucking gadgets he's got and all these fucking like pedals and like it's just like he's got something so unique going on. You know what I mean? It's like, and then you got Simon, who's like unique as fuck too, and it's like he's like, my God, is this guy like a technical fucking prowess behind him?
Right.
I mean, it's like unbelievable how fucking how good Simon is. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And it's like we all have different unique voices. You know what I mean? How do they come together? And it's like, I don't know, just by us playing together, all three of us, like it just was pouring out of us. I was playing things that I normally don't play. And I could say the same probably for all, everybody. Parr was doing stuff that he normally doesn't do. Like, for example, besides the drums, you hear the drums, obviously the drums are me. But, I just didn't do the drums. There's a lot of other things I did, piano, fucking bass, synths, whatever, and,
right.
And the thing is that you listen to that album, and you really can't tell who's doing what. It sounds
that's actually
like
honestly, when I thought about that, and I have it on vinyl, I bought that as fast as I could, and I'm going to probably listen to that before I go to bed tonight. The only characteristic I could tell was you behind the drums, and I was like, who the fuck is doing everything else? I had no clue, and I was like, this is so perfectly spooled up into a song, like the sonic fabric is so tightly woven. I really couldn't. I was like, oh, where's Atrium Carceri stuff? Where, I was having such a hard time parsing that out. And I think that makes it even better. It's not like, oh, here's this part from this artist and here's that part from this artist. Like, it was just like this perfect semblance of sound that I really was like, what the fuck? Like, it was pretty mind-boggling to me in a great way. For that reason, I think.
Yeah, it was like I said, nothing has ever come together that smooth. It was like just the ideas were pouring out, and it was like, you'll listen to something like, Simon is known, for being a really good piano player. You know what I mean? And he's known for his notes and he has this particular style. And you'll listen to some things and you'll be like, oh, that's got to be Simon.
Yes.
That's not, it's me. And you'll listen to something you think was me, and it's fucking Parr. doing it, and it's like, and it's just all over, and it's like you really can't fucking tell. I think we just, for some reason, when we get together, it's like we bring something out different, and that's the freedom that I don't know. I loved it. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't attached to, I guess, the inner story anymore. I could do something different. You know what I mean? And I really enjoyed it. I really did. And I hope we'll get to another one. I think we will. You know what I mean? It's been what, 2 years, I think?
Yeah, it sounds about right. And how was it too, just working? I guess I wanted to also, because you're talking, it's fascinating to hear not like the way you or the way you hashed out the sentence or the way you articulated the sentiment of not wanting to contribute necessarily a solo track as it could be used on a God Body Disconnect record, but going from the Miles to Midnight and maybe even touching just a bit on some of those collaborative H.P. Lovecraft tributes as well. Like, just, it's a different realm. It's not really your story. It's something that is kind of completely new. It's not related to what you're working on conceptually with God Body Disconnect. What is it like working with artists that are nowhere near you geographically speaking? I mean, has that created any challenges, or is it all based on Miles to Midnight, sounds very smooth, but how is that for you personally, trying to create songs and compositions in that manner?
Obviously, I grew up playing in bands, you know what I mean? So like playing in a room with someone, there's a certain energy there that you feel, you know what I mean? And obviously that element is not there in that sense, you know what I mean, with physically being there. But I mean, Miles to Midnight though, I mean, even though we're on different parts of the globe, I mean, Par's in fucking Sweden, and Simon's, near you, and I'm in Jersey. It's like, I don't know, just getting together, and even though it's like over, online, and it's just like, I don't know, I'll send a layer, and Simon would have, he'll add on top of it, do something different.
Sure.
And then Par will do something he'll run it through one of his fucking pedals, a machine, and make it sound totally different. It's just like we just feed off the ideas, you know what I mean? And I think the same thing, when we do the H.P. Lovecraft, we're working with each other's layers. That's the thing, every single one of us will upload a few different layers, to the, I guess, we have, I guess, the cloud, and I'll put 5 different, riffs or layers, you know what I mean? And someone else will. And then what we do is we download each other's layers, and you can't use your own that you've already attributed. Don't use the ones you already sent up. Those are for other people to use now. Like, you got to let them go. You know what I'm saying? But you can add something new to it that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a new layer that you didn't show that you want to do, or take someone else's layers and make a song out of it. So it's a very interesting kind of collaboration. You know what I mean? And that's where it feels like cohesive, because it's like everybody has the same source to pick from. You know what I mean? We all have like 50 layers or more, 100 layers from people. It's like, all right, I like that one, I like that one. And, like, say, like, Johnny Darko, like, Oleg, he'll come and he may not use the same layer I do. You know what I'm saying? He may pick something else, and I'll pick something from Council 9, or whatever. We'll go down the line that way. So, or some people will use the same layers, but they'll process them differently. He'll pitch it down, he'll add reverb, he'll stretch it out, make it sound totally different. So it's interesting the way that collaboration works, but it feels really cohesive, in that sense. I do enjoy doing that. Actually, I just finished up my track this weekend, and I handed it in. So, for that collaboration.
Yes, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that, and I won't pry on details because I'm sure people are trying to keep that tight-lipped until it gets closer to the release date.
But I don't get to hang on with, like, I don't, for some reason, that kind of collaboration too, like the inner story just doesn't come out. Right. You know what I'm saying? For some reason, I'm able to, kind of do something different. You know what I mean? Because I'm not solely on my own. Even though I am making my own track, I'm using other sources, other people's inspirations. And that's kind of opens up like another window for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, like, you'll hear different things from me. You know what I mean? You won't necessarily, hear, the typical God by Disconnect that you know. you know.
Right.
Maybe tinges of it here and there. Of course, you see, all that's, I know his notes, I know this, but I'm allowed to do something else, and that's
Yeah.
kind of the collaboration I really enjoy kind of doing.
And that's
What
what,
I mean?
yeah. hmm Sorry, go ahead.
It's not really that I want, to hold on to a track for a God by Disconnect album,
hmm
like, let's say, like, it's not, oh, I want to use it for my album. It's like, that's not really what I'm after. I'm not going for that. It's just, it's a lot of energy to, dig like that for some reason. I don't know, not I'm purposely digging, but for some reason when I sit down and I'm left alone completely to myself, it automatically is going to dig. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's like, I don't know, and it's like it's too exhausting for me,
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, and that's a component I really enjoy about those collaborative efforts in that, and how you have illuminated or elucidated for me the Miles to Midnight record. It's like when you listen to those collaborative efforts, at a certain point you can, like, I imagine I could think, oh, that component sounds like it's from this artist, but it likely isn't, based on just how amorphous it is and how you're explaining. You take down other people's layers and fuck with them and do you put your own twist on it, so it's almost like you don't even know which artist, you may think which artist is doing a certain part, but it likely is somebody completely different, if that's a fair
Yeah,
assessment, which is pretty
yeah,
neat too. So
yeah. I mean, that was all created by Simon. That whole project, like that. I don't know. He's a mastermind at that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
I don't know how the hell. I mean, each time, and I'm just surprised that there have been able to be so many, or they, just as consistently as they have been each year. It's like, god damn. And then the Nair Lothatep or whatever was over 3 hours, or about 3 hours. It's like, holy shit! Just putting all that together, it's mind-boggling to me that it's even,
yeah, he
and
does it at
yeah,
the end too. He takes all the fucking tracks at the end, and he puts them together, and, like, he knows how to piece the puzzle. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, he has how many tracks? What, 20 something tracks sometimes? You know what I mean? And he just, like, kind of puts them together. And
yeah. I have,
this one goes here, that goes there, that goes there, and he fades this into that and fades that out, and then as well he has to do his own track. You
yep,
know what I mean? On top of it,
yep.
you know what I mean, and where to put it and all that. So it is amazing how he does that.
Yeah, it really is remarkable. I guess, so generally, I think I've covered a lot of what I wanted to get at. I didn't know if there were specific components you wanted to talk about the project that I may have failed to touch on, or is
No,
there...
I think we got a lot out. Like I said, you're getting all new shit here.
Yes.
Stuff that I've never, stuff that I, for the first time I'm saying, to myself
hmm
and admitting, you know what I mean? I don't, like I said, I don't normally think about these things on the surface and talk
Yeah.
about these kind of things, you know what I mean? So yeah, I
Yeah.
did enjoy this. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
no,
it.
and I appreciate you taking all the time you have in talking to me so in depth about the project. It's always a pleasure to just learn so much. I guess the only other lingering question, or the only other kind of, it's a generic closing question, but are there plans on the horizon, or are there any pieces of God Body Disconnect that you want to illuminate for folks? I guess the Miss Between Mirrors came out, shit, how, I don't even remember when it came out now. In May, June,
June. It was
June.
June, I think. Yeah, June.
Okay,
June.
so I presume that there isn't. I mean, are you already working on new material for the next album, or are you still in that decompression phase?
Well, you see, when you release an album, you know what I mean? Like I said, it takes time. By the time I hand it in, you know what I mean? And he gets an album, Simon gets it, he'll, review it, he has to master it, he has to do artwork, print it,
Yeah,
marketing. It's a few months. It can take sometimes. You know
sure,
what I mean? It can take two,
sure.
three. So I've already kind of decompressed by the time I sent it in,
Okay,
already. It's been already some time. I'm always doing something. I'm always fiddling around with music, you know what I mean?
sure.
And I'm just trying to find my way in the end, you know what
Okay,
I mean? And
sure,
eventually I'll come to the point, but yeah, of course I'm going to do another album, you know what I mean? Of course I'm doing another solo album.
sure,
Yeah, I'm working on some things, you know what I mean? And I'm dragged in a couple different directions, you know what I mean?
sure.
That's the name of the game, you know what I mean? I got to kind of figure out how to put the puzzle together of what the journey really means, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, and
Right.
that's sort of what I do. Collaborations, yeah, like I said, Miles to Midnight, I hope,
Yeah.
I hope we can get, doing that. I don't really have any other, collaborations on the map. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Sure.
I do get, I have been asked to do some collaborations, and I don't know. The one thing with me is that I'm first of all, I'm a Cryo Chamber fan. Before I'm
Yes.
even an artist on there, I'm a fan of the fucking label. I'm a
Hmm.
fan of every fucking album on there.
Right.
And it's just when I felt like I handed in the album to Simon in the beginning, and I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect for him to be interested or whatnot.
Sure.
And he gave me my first shot. To me that meant a lot. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It was like this guy gave me a shot coming from fucking nowhere. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like I don't. No one knows me for dark ambient, and hell, fucking who the fuck remembers me from dripping? It's
Right.
been like fucking 12 years ago. Come on, dude.
Sure.
I'm a nobody. You don't fucking put yourself out there at all. So he
Right.
gave me that shot, and to me it was like, that it means a lot to me. When I come from, loyalty means a lot. You know what I mean? That kind of, and I made a word to myself. I promise. I said, listen. I said, as far as collaborations go, you know what I mean? If I'm going to do an album, a collaboration, it's going to be Crowd Chamber. That's it
Mm.
for me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I get often asked, by outside artists, and listen, guys I respect, guys I look up to. I'm like, God damn, you really want to work with me? Shit. And it's like, but I made that promise to myself that anything that I release, God by Disconnect, is going to be on Crowd Chamber.
Okay.
You know,
Interesting. Okay.
and
That's good to know.
that's just how it is with me. I made that promise, and it's a personal thing to me. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I
Sure.
can't go back on my word. I'll eat myself fucking alive. You know what I mean? If
Right.
I got enough fucking negative shit going into my head, if I fucking go back on my word, it's like, goddamn, no. And no, it meant a lot for him to give me that shot. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And, and just to continue to believe in me. You know what I'm saying? He really does. He knows how to motivate that guy. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
He does. And he
Yeah.
does it in a way where it's like, he can not criticize something, but let you know in a way like, listen, this could be better.
Yes.
Sometimes, you know what I
Right.
mean? That can happen, and it's like he does it in such a way where it gets you motivated. You're like, shit, let me fucking, yeah, he's right. I'm gonna make this shit fucking
Yeah.
better. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's like, I don't know, he's got this quality to him, and it's like, I'm just loyal in that sense. You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's it. That guy gave me a shot. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be nowhere else.
No, yeah, yeah, that makes sense to me. I know I've been talking your freaking ear off for
Nah,
three
me too.
hours. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time, Bruce, and I sincerely appreciate just all the time you have given me with all this information. I've learned so much more about the project. I'm probably gonna have to go listen to a couple of your albums on my speakers and just zone out for a couple of hours after this. I think just because with all this newfound knowledge, there's so much more context I have that I think is enriching the project even more than than I was able to glean from all the listens I have done previously.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate all love. I appreciate all the, I'm grateful for everybody out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Everybody that takes the moment to write me something, a message, or, you know what I mean? Like I said, I may not be the most vocal on Facebook.
sure.
I'm pretty sporadic with my posts and whatnot. But I love talking to people, personally. They'll write me a message, and, I get, fans all, across the board, whichever, just all different types of people. And it's just, I don't know, I'm grateful to be able to share something
Yeah,
together with them. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is, about to me at the end of the day. I'm just happy to be here.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I'm just happy to be here. I'm not looking to do anything else. I'm not looking to become some big star or,
Right.
run into, do anything else with music. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy where I am. I don't need to, stretch out, and farther myself in any way. And I'm just happy right here,
Hmm.
and that's what it is to me. And, you know,
Yeah,
and thanks for giving me the time too to talk. It's
of
like, I
course.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you just divulging all the details you have. Yeah, there's just like a level of intimacy I've been able to glean from this that, I just don't think I could get in any other format. So I sincerely appreciate and you also kind of got me out of my, not doing artist interview rut for a little bit. So I appreciate that as well. I think you've rekindled in me one of the reasons why I enjoy doing these so much. Save all the editing. The editing can be a bit of a pain in the ass. But
Isn't it always?
yeah, it's always fun
That's
to
the
do the
worst part.
conversation, and then you're like, oh fuck, I have to edit 3 hours of this. God damn,
Yeah.
here we go.
But yeah, I had a good time talking to you, man. I really
Yeah.
did. I enjoyed it. So
Likewise. Very
all
much so.
right.
Okay, perfect.
So,
I'll talk to you
all
soon
right,
then,
bro.
yeah?
Yeah, man. Take care.
Okay. You
All
too.
right.